All right, welcome to episode 9 of Almost in Agreement. We are on the 9th of May, 2020. It's Mother's Day Eve, so if you're listening to this and you haven't called your mom yet, stop what you're doing and call your mother. I don't know. What's new, fellas?
Well, if they're listening to this, it's probably tomorrow, which is going to be Mother's Day.
So I said, if you're listening to this and you haven't talked to your mother yet, call your mother.
Yeah. If anybody's going to listen to this, they're probably going to miss Mother's Day if they didn't call them.
I'm just saying, it's by the time this will release, barring some weird anomaly with the computer. I should have this broken down and released tomorrow, which is Mother's Day, 2020. So, anyway, what's new, everybody?
I don't know. It seems like Knoxville's getting back to business as usual since the coronavirus. Seems like people are out and around.
Yeah, I worked today.
Interstate traffic hasn't been really bad.
Interstate, well, yeah, but like I was at, where was I? I went to Lowe's and the wife went to Hobby Lobby and they were.
Oh, she's
both
happy.
Both places were packed.
Hobby Lobby's back, yeah. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, for work today, for me, the grocery stores have been fairly busy, but a couple of the stores were just packed today. Like, I mean, I usually don't have to park that far away to park, and there was a couple times, like the big new Cedar Bluff Kroger's or whatever, I was all the way into the Chewy's parking lot, basically.
Yeah, jeez.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, there's been that whole big scare with we might run out of meat if meat plants start shutting down. I think they said like fresh beef supplies were getting low, but as far as frozen beef, there was a lot of still in the freezers, basically. So apparently they had to shut down had Wendy's that had signs up and saying we're out of beef because they do the whole fresh beef,
only, yeah.
quote unquote. Yeah.
Yeah,
that was the first I had heard of it. I was like, holy shit! I was like, what? Fast food's running out of burgers.
There's only 4 meat processors really in the country,
yeah.
And they do all the processing. So it's not a supply issue. It's a processing issue. Yeah.
I heard something about that on the Jacob Hornbergers did a Facebook post about that, and apparently there is some sort of somewhere where the FDA had gotten involved in their quote like safe meat processing things, made it really hard for smaller meat processing facilities to go, and that's part of the reason why there's only 4 major players or 5 major players or whatever you just said.
Yeah, Tyson, Cargill.
Right, and so the government involvement, and then again, Hornberger's the libertarian. The government involvement basically pushed all the little players out, which is the only reason we're going to have a problem like this. Is because if one of the 4 major players has a problem, that's a quarter of the stock that's having issues, and thanks to that whatever that regulation is, and again, according to the post in the article that I was reading, it attached to it was basically saying that like it hasn't really done anything as far as food safety. You've just had more mass recalls because one meat processor has one cow that has something wrong with it, and that gets blended in and mixed up in all the crap that goes on in the plants and goes after thousands of pounds of meat, and so they have to recall entire batches. And if we had more small processors, we wouldn't have that problem. And so essentially the Hornberger's argument is the FDA is failing at its core because it's not making the meat safer. It's just making more mass recalls where the same theoretical rules apply to a small processor. You're going to have less meat contaminated, so you're going to have less. When you do have recalls, you're not going to have huge ones. You're just going to have small, couple 100 pounds batch get recalled, not thousands of pounds because of 1 day or 2 days of a plant getting a contamination or whatever.
Well, there's recalls every single day on some food product. You don't hear about it, but there are tons. I mean, when I was in the food business, like every day I got at least one email that said such recalled because of this. I mean, a lot of times it was nothing wrong with the product, but they left an ingredient out on the label or something.
It wasn't up to spec.
No, it was like they didn't include I don't know, red number 5
Right.
on the label, which was made correctly. It wasn't bad. It was just a labeling issue, or even the calories. It was listed at 110 and it was actually 130, so they had a recall.
Right.
But there's a ton of stuff that gets recalled on a daily basis.
All right, so that brings up this is a major one. This is going to be an ongoing multi-episode conversation, so I don't feel as bad including it with starting it without AC being here, although he will be a voice of opposition, I'm sure, when we do have it with him on the show. Hopefully he can call in here a little bit later. I haven't heard from Jim today. Anybody heard from Jim?
No, Jim.
Damn it. Anyway, this just the FDA being, it's like, the theory of the FDA makes sense to me, but the practice is a huge failure. So take that premise, and I asked you this off air too the other day, Max. Name a government agency that succeeds at doing what its perceived job is supposed to be, I guess, and then name one that does it inside a budget that makes sense for the job allowed.
Yeah.
So I'm not putting you on the spot to name one, but it's just
we talked about that, and we talked about we talked about the military as in doing a good job on what they do, but not a good job on what it costs them to do it.
Right.
And then, of course, the like TWRA or any wildlife, organization. I think they do a good job.
Right.
Definitely not the FDA, the CDC, FEMA, our government in whole. So,
I mean, that's my point. And
not the IRS, none of them.
Right. And it goes back to last week a little bit in our Bernie talk, and it's like, okay, all his plans sound great, but these are going to be operated by these same people and the same types of people that operate all these other agencies that at least you and I agree don't do a very good job. And so we expect somehow more of them to do a better job with more activities than what's currently happening. Where my viewpoint is, they don't do a good job anyway. Let's remove them from the picture. So, anyway, that's to bring that topic up. I don't know. I had one that my a peer, I suppose, a guy I know who owns a couple bars. This was actually last week after the podcast. I was well lit, and I got in a Facebook argument, which I usually avoid doing, where this guy posted, "Why would you take more than you need?" And me and my drunken sassiness was like, "Why would you take less than you deserve?" And then it got into this little side note argument, and other people chimed in and stuff. And the more I thought about it, the more it's like, the problem with the initial statement is, why would you take more than you need? The author of that statement is presuming that they know better than the person they're witnessing taking.
Yes.
And it's a mindset issue that's the problem. So
I don't see that.
What do you mean?
I think that's more assuming that. That's telling a person, I guess. I don't think that's your peer assuming that somebody else is taking more than they need.
Okay.
I think that's with the given that somebody took more than they need, and him asking the question, why would you take more than you need?
But the base question being,
I don't think it's the assumption that somebody is taking, and that's not him passing judgment upon that person. I think that's just asking the general question, why would one take more than they need?
Right, but the implication of the statement is that he knows better. He being the author of this statement, not. And that's the problem.
I think you're reading into it maybe with a bad history with this person.
No, I like the guy a lot. I actually have a lot of respect for the dude. He's a good dude. He runs. I mean, he built a brand new fantastic bar right before all this went down, and he's got to be struggling right now. And I feel for him. And maybe that was the reference. Maybe the reference was these.
And I guess the question is, what are we talking about? I mean, are we talking about Skittles out of a candy jar, or are we talking about food at a grocery store? I mean, what are we talking about?
I don't know.
That's the question. Because I know when I go to a buffet, I end up taking more than I need because I don't want to make another trip up there. so I usually have a little bit of leftover. You know what I mean? Like, what are we talking about? That's the
You're right, but I don't think I think it's more. I think it applies. My thought process and it applies a little bit more universally. You're correct that you're going to take at least what you would, but still, even that, I think when I go to a buffet, I get my money's worth. Air quote. You know,
yeah.
like
And you do take
I
more than you need.
right. I it's more than I physically need, but it's what I paid for. At least perceptive to me. Like I'm gonna get at least as much as I spent. Like this is a $15 buffet. I'm gonna eat myself $15 fat.
I mean, nowadays there ain't no cheap buffet.
Right, but I'm just what I'm saying though. So like, but again, it's the perception issue.
Maybe your response should have been because they don't sell bourbon in 8-ounce liters at a value.
Yeah.
You know, I take more than I need all the time.
Right, and the bar guy, you know, who is a bar guy, full force, and I mean, like, you know, as a business owner that you and I are, Max, and he is as well. It's weird, you know. It's just it's weird that like he's super selfless, he's a super nice dude, super great to his people, super great to quote friends. I mean, he's super nice to me. I like him a lot. But like, I just can't wrap my head around the premise of it because I can't remember. I should look up the whole Facebook conversation because it got kind of funny and I was hammered, like I said. But I mean, he said something about so we determine our own greed. Because my thing was like, you know, who's to tell you what you need? You know, like that's the flip side of it. Is like, well, I'm taking this, whatever this is. I'm taking 3 Skittles instead of 2. Whatever the thing is, I'm taking it. You know, and so who's to decide whether I need it or not? I mean, how do you, like, again, a Skittle's a little easy because nobody needs any Skittles. But, you know, like, again, like, we could assume that he was talking about maybe people that don't need the SBA loans taking it and making it harder for companies that do need it to get it. You know, I don't know. It's just a weird thought process to me. The thought process is that, to me, to me at least, it felt like maybe not he identified the idea, but at least the idea is in the statement to me that he or somebody other than the quote person taking knows better than the person taking does for their own needs sake. So if I, you know, I don't know, I need my perception says I need this thing. Well, it might be an expensive thing, and somebody who is less fortunate who can't afford such a thing, they don't need that because they can't have that. It doesn't mean I don't need it. It just means that I mean, I don't know that I didn't articulate that well at all, but the idea being that somebody else knows my needs more than I do. You know?
Yeah.
That's the inherent, I guess, the implication that I get the more I think about the statement is that there's somebody else that is trying to say that they know what I need more than I do. And I mean, I don't know, that applies to a lot of things. And I mean, to me, that's a basic liberal argument is that somebody knows better than the general masses of what the general masses needs. That's the general liberal argument to me.
Well, I mean, but that's a general thing. Like,
it's the AR conversation. You don't need an AR.
Well, yeah, and okay. If they're giving away free Band-Aids on the corner, so the only person that should go get the free Band-Aids are people that have a cut right now.
Right.
No, because I might have a cut. Yes, I don't need it right now, but is there a possibility I'm going to need it in the future? I don't. I see. That's such a generic question. I don't even know what. I need some more basis of what the need is.
Right.
I mean, are they? Yeah, you know what I mean. That's the.
You can interpret or read into it any way you see it.
Exactly.
I don't know. It's just it struck me funny, especially in my drunkenness, and then the conversation ensued, and you know, I just thought about it, and I was trying to like, I don't know, it just applied to me in a lot of things. The my interpretation of it and the mindset of somebody who knows better than the person in question, that I think happens a lot these days in a lot of scenarios. I mean, it's Bernie in a nutshell. It's like Bernie and his administration knows better of what people need than they know for themselves.
Well, it's just like the people that agree with the redistribution of wealth.
Right.
Those are people that don't have, not always, because I have a family member that we had a conversation the other night about it, and they do well, But we had the conversation, and it was like, well, if these people have all this money, they don't really need that. They should pay higher taxes. They should pay all this stuff. And I didn't bring it up, but I would want to be like, well, when you're on your huge 48-foot boat parked next to a guy with a dinghy, is it fair that you have that boat and he has a dinghy? You don't think of it that way
Right.
because you have the big boat.
Right.
It's just like someone that has $1 billion, and you ask them if they should be paying more in taxes. Everybody that makes $1 million or above them usually says no. But the person that makes $10,000 a year thinks the person that makes $50,000 should pay more in taxes. The person that makes $50,000 a year thinks the person that makes $200,000 a year should pay more in taxes. And the person that makes $200,000 thinks the person that pays $1 million a year should pay more in taxes.
Well, and
right. It comes down to, I think, is it a jealousy thing? Like,
and it's
these people don't deserve it. I mean, I don't know.
Well, in the clarification of terms there though is the person that makes $100,000 a year should pay more taxes than the $10,000 a year as a total amount, but not as a percentage.
Yeah, no, we had the conversation. I said, I agree. There shouldn't be, these multi-million-dollar companies that don't pay any taxes. I absolutely agree with you all the way. But the point is, if you don't change the tax laws and you're just going to increase the tax rate, people like us that can't afford to pay an accountant $50,000 a year are going to be paying the brunt of that.
Right.
And these people that make all the money can't afford to pay that lawyer or that accountant, who's probably a lawyer, all this money so he doesn't have to pay those taxes. So right. It only hurts the people in the middle, our income class.
Yeah, and that's always how it's going to shake out as far as those things go. Oh, it was interesting. What was the other one I sent to the group? Random topic was the apparently
flat tax.
I agree with the flat tax. It makes sense to me. I mean,
I agree.
I mean,
when you buy $1 million boat, you
right.
pay more in taxes.
Well,
if you're dealing drugs and you're not paying any taxes throughout the year, now you're paying taxes on all your purchases.
Yep. And I mean, we're in Tennessee, so we're basically a flat tax state. We just don't have a state income tax. We have a flat. That's how. I mean, Tennessee is basically a flat tax.
No, I said I was saying if you had a federal.
Right. No, I agree.
On everything you purchase.
I agree. I think one of the big ones that I thought would be a good idea, for business in general would be to have a federal internet sales tax as a way for the federal government to make some money. Maybe figure it out. I mean, whatever, the tech companies can figure it out. You either pay the state sales tax for the state you sell it in, because that would be the normal process. And like, if I order something from California, I pay Tennessee state sales tax, or the federal internet sales tax, whichever one's probably whichever one's less would make more sense, because then it keeps the tax money. I don't know that one. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what the best way to do that was, because it'd be kind of a bummer for California to be exporting everything and not making any tax revenue.
Yeah.
But that would encourage, maybe then just do it as whichever one's greater, because then that would encourage local spending. Everybody's on the buy local kick right now, even though they can barely do it. Because that's the weird thing is, you think about it, like everybody's on the buy local kick. I'm trying to think.
People don't understand what local is. That's the major problem with buy local. My sister-in-law went to Subway to support a local business.
I mean, it's a franchise, so
it's not. It's a bit. Well, the one she works for has 47 stores. That's not small or local business.
Right. But it is, because it may not be a local owner, but even in the simplest terms of buy local, at least doing that, you got the local Subway worker doing the work. There are local jobs at least associated with that.
Well, then that's with anything. If you're working for the largest company in the world, Walmart, and you go to Walmart, now you're buying local. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, if you're comparing it to buying it from Amazon, then yes.
Yeah, but I
You
don't
know,
think that's
but yeah,
supporting local business.
right. But
The
I'm just trying to
definition.
think.
Well, I guess my definition of what
Right.
local business is not Walmart.
But I'm trying to like. I mean, realistically, other than restaurants, like what's left? Local. I mean, I mean, the vape shop is local. Our store is local.
Liquor stores are local.
Right.
I mean, you can
And I mean,
go.
they're
I
not
mean,
really either. I mean, like Total Wine is a national company, and
yeah, they are.
they have all the big debacles, and they're fighting state laws and stuff like that, trying to get um, more in locations and stuff like that. But I mean, it's like um, I'm trying to build this deck, and I got a fence that I want to build and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could go to Wit. We got Wit Lumber here. Um,
No, I think they closed.
There's a good bit of like local business. I mean, just with the food, you've got farms that you can go to the farmers market and support those local growers. But I mean, even just at the farmers market, you've got florists that are there, people that are growing their own florist or flowers, growing their own florist.
They're probably growing those too, but they're probably at home.
they're called children.
You just gotta water them.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, I think you're right. It goes. I think it works. I think both
clothing,
work.
retail, jewelry. I mean,
But yeah,
there's
I
lots
mean,
of
still,
small businesses.
I mean, but realistically, like, okay, no, what's a local clothier?
I mean,
Well,
there's those
okay.
little kitschy things down in.
There's Men XL. I go there. I don't know how big they are, but they seem.
Pretty sure it's a chain.
Yeah, I mean, it's a chain. They're multi. I mean, they're at least like a regional.
I'm just trying to think of small. I mean, there's some boutiques that obviously I don't.
That's
go
what I was saying.
to.
It's just some like the local boutiques that are more like kind of kitschy and they're expensive in their own right. So
Right,
it's kind of
but
hard to support those that high end.
But even one of those, realistically, most of those probably aren't much different than a Walmart when it comes down to it, because most of them aren't making their clothes here. They're not using. They're certainly not using like local fabrics. Maybe they're actually producing their clothes.
That's what I say. I think they've
Locally.
got more people.
Well, I mean,
they've got
if
local producers that are doing that.
But most of them
local
are
jewelry makers that have got their product.
Right, but they're importing the gold, or they're importing.
Well, if you take that into consideration, then
you
we
can't expect
are
them
not
to
a local
smelt
business.
their own
No,
either,
we're not.
gold.
That's
Because-
the right. You're right. Exactly. That's the point I'm kind of getting to, is that the idea of local is hard. I mean, other than going to a farmer's market to buy fresh produce from a farmer up the road, there is not a lot of hard quote fully local business. And so, yeah, I think Walmart counts, just in the
So you're
sense that
saying you want to find a fully integrated local business. That's what you want.
I'm not saying I want to find that. I'm just saying that would be like, but on your definition of local, that would be the need. If you're going to buy local, it'd have to be like Sam's farmer's market example, where that guy picked it out of the field yesterday, put it in crates, brought it down, and you're buying it from the market today.
No, my definition of local is you have, it's small. You've got the owner there. If you wanted to find the owner, there's not a CEO you have to email to talk to the owner. You know what I mean? I think that local is small business.
Right. I don't know.
That's my definition.
Yeah, and I mean, and in the sense that all of that money stays here. In the sense that our example being like, we import our products because we have to, but we pay our employees way too much bonus, and and then you and I take our cut and we pay our KUB and all the other stuff, but you and I get what we get, and then that stays here, and that builds a deck on the house, and that builds your chicken coop and buys you another boat.
Yeah.
Not another boat. Sorry, listeners. I'll want to know. I'm going to go ahead and say we have 2 listeners now. I'm going to up the number. All 2 of you listening. It's not another boat in the sense that he now has 3 boats. So he got rid of 2 to get 1 new one. Newer one, better one, whatever. Did you get it yet, or are you still?
No,
had the financing issues. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a mess. Credit bureaus and bullshit.
Stupid freaking credit report.
Yeah. Which I don't get. Like, I mean, the weird one is like, so like we have the card that we share for the business, right?
Which I don't think it helps us out at all.
Yeah,
it doesn't show my credit report.
It shows on mine, but it usually doesn't show as a positive for me because we use it and we use the shit out of it for the shop, and so we have on any given day, we have 50 to 75% of that total credit line spent. And if that happens to be the day that they do their snapshot of my debt to income and all that kind of stuff, or it's basically, it makes my percentage of used credit go way up, and I've actually gone down, and like it's actually a negative for my personal credit score because of the way it.
Well, I tried to pay it off like immediately, and like I tried to pay off what he spent Thursday, and it won't let me pay it off until
it clears.
It's always like 6 days or whatever before I can. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I literally asked him. I was like, I requested an increase, and like I tried to like triple it, and they gave us 10% more.
$1,000.
Yeah, and I was like, what? I was like, look at the history that since we've had this card. We run this thing all the way to max, and we pay it all the way down. Run it all the way to max, pay it all the way down. And the only reason I really want more is not so we can go past our current max. It's just so when we get to our current max, it's only a third of our total credit available. It's really literally for my credit score is the only reason I want a larger max on it, just so I can not hide it, but just so it makes my account look better. So when I run my credit score, it doesn't look stupid. Like if I had anything going on, I'd be like, we can't use the card anymore. Like if I personally had a need, I was like, I need to get my credit score up a few points. It's like, we got to quit using this card.
Then I would use it more.
I know you would, asshole. But
I got money to burn.
But the other one, I was the other thing I sent to the group, this NFL. I can't remember what the title of it is, but I guess it's as a response to the Kaepernick incidents. The NFL is
that they have. Well, it's not NFL. It's players like across.
But it wasn't
sports.
just players. But it wasn't just players. There's owners and like league officials that are part of the group, and they sent this signed letter demanding the FBI get involved in a criminal investigation, which is a weird story. I mean, I get kind of the outcry of the story. Do you guys know the story?
Yeah, the guy was running, and the father and son thought like they saw him stop at like building a house and look in the window or whatever, and he was just running. It was in running clothes.
Right, and there had been some break-ins in the area. And so they approached him to try to citizens arrest him because they thought he was this guy breaking into houses. And like the Georgia law for citizens arrest says you have to be the witness. And according to all the stories and stuff, neither the father or the son were the witness. It was, hey, that looks like the guy that somebody was talking about broke into that construction site the other day. And racist or not, it doesn't. I mean, that was but regardless of how it was, and so the argument from them is that they tried to stop him and talk to him, and dude attacked them, and the kid shot the guy and killed him. So black guy, white guy, and his dad. But the big problem, the big hook in the case to me is that the dad is a retired detective of that area, and so part of the reason they're taking so long to do anything with this case is because all the DAs in the county are like, we can't touch this case. And so like the first one got it and they recused themselves because that DA is like, well, I've worked with this guy in the past. I can't, it's conflict of interest. Can't do it. So the court assigns a new DA and the next DA is like, well, I've worked with him too. We can't do it. And so then they actually brought in a DA from like a neighboring county or something like that. And he's the one who has now pressed the charges and brought the charges and to the grand jury or whatever. And it, like,
the crazy thing about that story, like, did you see? I watched the video, and like the guy's running down the street. He's just running like a runner,
jogging, yeah.
And then the guy in the truck and whatever, and it's kind of a shaky video, and it looks like the guy's chasing him with a gun, and the guy like runs around, like away from the guy around the back of the truck, like he's running from him. And then when they come in the front of the truck, you hear a gunshot go off, and then you see the guy wrestling with the guy with the gun, and then obviously she shoots him again,
right,
and kills him or whatever. So the video doesn't show like the black guy was the aggressor in this situation, but the problem I have is like everyone's all in outrage over this, but the police department never said like we're not charging these people with anything. It seemed like the police department was trying to figure out the situation and find, like you said, a DA that was not tied to it. And then people got all up in uproar that these guys weren't arrested and being charged
Right.
when the police department never said they weren't. Like, police
Right.
department didn't come out and say, "Oh no, this was self-defense. We're not charging these two individuals for this crime."
When
Right.
did the incident
But
happen? Was it about a month ago? I thought I read something
No,
that
it's been a longer.
that was.
It's been like 2 or 3 months ago. Like that's part of
Okay.
the that's part of the.
I heard that was part of the outrage.
Right,
Was that
it's
it had
taken
been so long.
Right, which is understandable. I mean, I get it, but like LeBron James apparently tweeted something about how like life as a black man getting shot jogging down the street or something like that, and it's like, well, if you're gonna comment on it, dude, at least be accurate in the story, because there's more to the story. It wasn't just like, oh, there's a black guy running down the street, let's go shoot him. It was at worst case scenario, the father and the son, flat out racist dudes, and just assume that the one black guy they've seen this month is the black guy breaking into houses, or is the guy breaking into houses because they assumed the guy breaking into houses was a black guy too. Like that's their worst case scenario in it. And
the sad
maybe
thing is, he got shot and killed like
It was like 3 blocks away from where he lived or something.
no, it was more like the house, like 1 or 2 houses before his mom's house or whatever, where he was going. So if he
Right.
would have, had another 30 seconds, he would have been at home.
right. And I mean, it's like I said, it's messed up. It's gross all over. I mean, I think it seems to
Like
me, it's.
I think those guys should be charged, and by just
I mean, it's felony
from the
murder.
video,
I mean,
but-
it's felony murder. It's a false or not a false arrest. A kidnapping essentially. I mean, it's a kidnapping turned murder.
no, they didn't kidnap him.
I mean, they took him from what he was doing, which was push him off the side of the road essentially because they parked in front of him. But they took him from what he was doing and tried to detain him, and in the process of trying to detain him, killed him. I mean, it's
Well,
or
like
false
the video is really quick. Like, I mean, I don't know if they tried to detain him prior to that, but like the video is a car coming up and you see the guy running, and then you see a truck next to the guy running. Like, I don't know what they were saying, or they stopped right there, and then you see the guy chase the black guy around the truck. When they get around the front of the truck, you hear a gun go off, and when they come in front of the truck, the left of the truck, you'd see the black guy wrestling with the guy with the gun.
right.
So it didn't seem like they were detaining him. But anyway, doesn't matter. My point was just that I think America reacted too soon. Like, if the police department would have came out and said, we're not charging them, it was self-defense, the guy attacked him, blah, blah, blah. If that's how it would have came, I could see this uproar of like, hey, we need to get, this is local town good old boy shit, and we need to get the FBI involved in it. But
Right.
it seemed like the police department was trying to figure out what they're going to do. I don't know. That's my take on it. And I could be just some stupid white guy.
Right, I follow what you're saying, but the reason I bring it up is that it's where does this? I guess it's a multi-sport organization for justice. I don't know what I don't know what their mission statement is as an organization, but essentially
are they going to put out a letter when it comes election time on who they're backing as candidate?
maybe.
Yeah, I don't. I don't understand this. I don't understand the organization.
I mean,
what the purpose of is.
It goes back to episode 1 of the show of our podcast when we were talking about politics and sports, and does their platform give them authority on a subject outside of what they do? No. Does their platform do they have the right to use their platform to voice their opinion? Sure. But should their platform give them the ability to directly influence law? That's where I kind of get iffy on this one, because essentially they are asking, as a platform of a bunch of people that aren't local, that have no direct connection to this, like I don't know. I guess I don't know, because like the NAACP could be the same. If the NAACP was the group that wrote this letter, is that fair that
They wrote their own letter.
I'm sure they did, but is it fair for them to ask a jurisdiction to give up a case based on, lack of information and saying, oh, well, we don't think you're doing a good job. We're NAACP, we're national. We don't even have local people that really know what's going on. But the optics of this make it look like it's a racial issue, and we don't feel like you're doing it right. So we have the authority to ask the federal government to step in and take your local jurisdiction away from you on a case. Like, is that normal?
Yeah.
I mean, is that something that's normal and we're okay with as a society that LeBron James in LA can say a kid in Georgia is not being tried fairly, even though he has no idea really what's going on other than what he sees in the news like everybody else? That's the question.
And the NAACP should be doing more stuff like what the Innocent Project does. The Innocent Project does a ton for, minorities in this country. For I don't know if you know what the Innocent Project is.
Yeah.
I mean,
is that Jim? Is Jim over at your house?
Yeah.
Hey, Jim.
But yeah, they go and find people that are wrongfully accused and get them out of jail. And I mean, there's a whole TV show and it's pretty good about people that are getting convicted just basically.
Yeah, what's his face from Wisconsin? The Making a Murderer Netflix series, The Innocent Project, worked with him. Yeah.
But they're, those are good organizations that have a purpose. I mean, I wish they were a government organization. Then I could say there's a government organization that runs well.
Right, exactly, because they don't have the hoops to jump through, and they can go and do their thing. Have you started watching Waco? Either guy, anybody?
Yeah, I finished it.
You finished it already? I haven't finished it. I'm still like halfway through episode 2. We've been watching it.
It makes you look different at, what I mean. That happened.
I mean, I was 12, 13. I was a kid. I remember it. Yeah. I distinctly remember it. Like going back in like the crazy like national news stories from my younger years. I was in 3rd or 4th grade with the white Bronco chase. Like, I remember that. I remember we watched the not the sentencing but the verdict come out like in class in school. Like teachers like stopped like, oh no, they're doing the verdict, and like all like our the terrible TVs that we had back in the day. And we got to watch
Channel 1 News.
Yeah, we got to watch the verdict come out. I remember the Challenger, but I remember going to stay on topic. I remember Waco. I remember it specifically and having really no idea what was going on, and
until I watched that show, Waco, I thought that David Koresh was a crazy cult leader.
I mean, he was, but not.
Well, yeah, by definition, he was a cult leader. But like, the only thing he did, which is fucked up, is the whole you guys can't have sex. I'm gonna have sex with all your wives. And
young girls.
And young girls, yes.
Right.
I mean, that too, with their parents' permission. So he actually wasn't breaking any laws on that point about.
No, there's that. They don't talk about it in the show much, but I actually like. I was inspired enough by the show to do some outside research, and I watched a separate documentary on it and some other stuff. He had multiple accusations of a lot of underage girls, not just the one that he married underage with permission from the parents. There were some other ones that had come out as well. But the raid had nothing to do. Like there's ATF. ATF doesn't do anything with kids.
No.
So
the thing, what I was getting at is people came there on their own, and they could leave on their own. Like there's many people that left.
Yeah, one of the guys that they used to make that show was, I mean, one of the characters in the show is a guy that was there, and he left right before. And I don't know why. I haven't watched that part.
No, he didn't.
He didn't leave?
He left during the raid.
Oh, he left during the raid. Okay.
Yeah, you'll see it.
Right, but it's because I remember I was telling you about it. Yeah,
there was only 9 people that survived the raid,
and he was one of them.
He was one of them. But like the whole
spoiler
thing
alert.
He fucking wrote the book.
I know.
You should know he lived.
I know.
Somehow. But when you watch that and the FBI and the ATF and like you got to the point where how far are you in it?
Like episode 2. The raid hasn't started yet.
No, but did so? But ATF is there, right?
Yeah, John Leguizamo's across the street.
Yeah. So the ATF, the only reason they went there was trying to save face because of Ruby Ridge.
Right. That's the
Like
that.
that was the main thing, and it was like,
I mean, that's the
what?
main thing from the show. And that's the one thing I've been trying to find out from other sources, whether that quote from the head of the ATF that was in episode 2, I think, where like
Yeah,
the PR chick comes out
yeah,
and
yeah.
they're like,
That's a good question because you have most of the stuff. I would say most of the stuff from the FBI is accurate because they had their co-writer or
the negotiator
the
dude.
negotiator guy. So you have the FBI side on that. Too bad none of those guys from the ATF would write. Maybe one of them wrote a book, and then we could mash all three together and have something.
I thought that just as a premise as a for research for a show of that nature to have the two books that they had and use them together, because I would say you have a lot of like docu-series kind of like that where it's like one person's point of view in the story, but the way they took an inside the camp and outside the camp government figure, and they're using both their books, and they were both on set apparently, from one of the
Thibodeau, who's got the inside, I like his view.
he looks like Macaulay Culkin, and it freaks me out.
It's because it's Macaulay Culkin's little brother.
No way.
Yeah,
Like for real?
For real.
Nice.
Jennifer said that, and she goes, "That's Macaulay Culkin's little brother. He looks just like him." And I go, "Bullshit!" And I looked at the IDMB, and it's something McCulkin. I was like,
"All right, well that makes me feel less crazy at least."
I was like, "Okay, Rory."
He looks like a
Culkin.
McCulkin.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, I was like, yeah, that's funny. But yeah, Thibodeau, I think that was his name. I liked getting his point of view because he, really was not bought into David's shit. You know what I mean? He was like, I'm kind of here. Am I going to stay here? Do I want to stay here?
Right.
And so he wasn't like the lawyer guy that was bought into,
But to give it a fair bit, to kind of be fair to reality though, is he's writing the story. And
so is he want to portray himself as more of an outsider than he was one of the sheep?
Right. I wasn't drinking the Kool-Aid. I was there, and I kind of liked what was going on, but I wasn't all in, and that's me saving face, not the reality. But who knows? We only have 8 other people that may be able to corroborate.
There was like 30 people that were released during the siege, but I mean during the negotiation kind of process.
No, I think siege is the accurate word.
Well, I would say the siege is when they attacked. Well, I guess they attacked to begin with, but between the final day 51, between 1 and 51, there was like 30 people that left that they negotiated out, and then there was 8 or 9 people that lived. Which I only know that because I looked it up on
right
how many people lived, and it said that on whatever Wikipedia.
Right. 4 ATF agents and 75, 80
Yeah.
branch Davidians, and like 20 something of those were kids. Burned to death.
I think it was more than 20. I don't know.
I want to say it's like 25 kids or something like that. But anyway, I don't know. Like Shapiro was talking about on his show, and he's like, that is the most libertarian show ever. And that's how I feel about it so far. It's like, what is the ATF doing here? Like, what does the government give a shit about what these guys are doing here? And what the one bit of government that should have given a shit about anything going on there would have been children's services, and they had nothing to do with any of it. But the real one is like, one of the documentaries was talking about it with I think it was the local sheriff or something like that. He's like, Koresh walks into town all the time. Like, he'll come into town and he'll go shopping and do whatever. If they wanted to stop him from what he was doing and they had a warrant and for his arrest or whatever, they could have just waited for him to come into town and did it all the time. They could have easily just picked him up somewhere. But instead they wanted to do this theatrics, which is at least what they're presenting in the show, the theatrics of they wanted the news. They wanted the show to prove that ATF was needed after Ruby Ridge.
You know what's cool about that is, so all the conversations that he had, that David Koresh had with the negotiator. All that stuff's recorded, and so you can go back and listen to, all those conversations to know if it's accurate or not. And one of the conversations that David Koresh has with the negotiators was like, if you wanted me, why didn't you take me? He's like, I go running down the road every day.
Right,
You could
that
have
one.
taken me then. And so that is an accurate statement for the show, because it was on one of the recordings
Right.
that he had with the thing. Was like, why didn't you do that? Why did you have to come in here with guns? And it's like, no shit. Like, why would you? That's the big problem I have with them. If they wanted this guy, they could have got him at any time.
Yeah.
Why did the ATF feel like they had to wait till he was home, wait till he was in there, and then surround the place with armed people? Like, that's just like the opposite of what you do, unless you want that situation.
Right. And it goes back
You know what I mean?
I watched another documentary because it got it on my mind. It's like it was an older documentary, and it was actually pretty fair. It wasn't trying to make a stance for or against, but it was talking about the militarization of police departments, and like the SWAT team in what was it, the Watts riots in LA for like in the 80s.
The Rodney King?
No, it was before that. It was well before that, but it was essentially there was some rioting going on in the LA area, and the sheriff of the LA County Police Department had this idea and basically brought in some military guys and built this military unit that becomes SWAT, whatever SWAT stands for or whatever. And one of the guys in this documentary was crazy. It's like some rural Georgia. And it was this guy. He's like, I didn't mean to be an activist. I wasn't trying to. I was really just. It was a money argument, in that we were trying to get this fixed in schools and all this different stuff that was county stuff. And in the budget this year was a fucking tank, and it wasn't a tank. It was like an armored personnel carrier kind of thing, for the SWAT team. And I'm like, what? This thing's like $500,000. Why are we spending $500,000 on this? We could spend that $500,000 on the school or whatever. And so he's kind of one of the main characters of this documentary, talking about, I got into looking into why we're militarizing all this stuff. And he's like, in the state of Georgia, including Atlanta, and this was like, I want to say this is like 2005 when this documentary was being made. He was like, including Atlanta and the state of Georgia, over the last 15 years since SWAT teams started getting developed, there's been seven like, quote, situations that needed some sort of situation like that or whatever, and 0 in the county that he was representing and the 5 counties surrounding it. It's like, so statewide there's been 7. There's been 0 anywhere near here that we could even, like, bank robbery, hostage, all the stuff that you'd want a SWAT team for. He's like, there's been nothing like that that's ever happened around here, but our police department wants one. And so we started fighting it. So it's just talking about it. It's like, there's an act. I mean, older.
Well, I'm sure Knoxville has all that shit, right?
I don't know. I would assume.
Post 9/11, there was a lot of money grab for budgets. I think our sheriff got in trouble for buying a bunch of helicopters.
But
but he uses those to fly himself around places.
Now, you guys been in Knoxville a lot longer than I have.
False.
Yeah, you have. How long? When did you get here?
93.
Yeah. That's long before I got here.
No, that's not true. 95.
Well, it's not a little bit then. I got here in
we
98.
I'm gonna say we met in 01.
Yeah. So, but anyway,
Side note.
my point is, have you heard of a hostage situation in Knoxville?
No, I can't think of a
I remember
Or like
there
a
was
bank
one
robbery that there's like the people are held up like in Heat or any of these other cool
they're
ass
all-
fucking movie. Like,
we were on Rescue
don't know if it's
911 once. And it was this
Rescue
crazy
911?
situation. The old like William Shatner Rescue 911. And I've watched the footage of it, and it's crazy. I don't remember what exactly happened, but at some point the suspect was out on his front porch, laying on his back with a handgun on his chest pointed at it, and the the
Oh
police.
yeah, guy,
The police sniper actually shot the
out of his hand.
gun out of his hand, and they were able to get up on the porch and arrest him. I don't know what precluded all of
I
that.
do recall that story.
But yeah,
But
it was a semi
yeah.
hostage. He was holding himself hostage, I guess. Like,
But what I'm saying is that when that situation, the cops, I mean, anybody that had a good shot, I mean, a gun and could shoot, you didn't need an armored tank. You know, you didn't need
right.
whatever those things are called, those little armored vehicle thingies that, I don't know.
Right, an armored personnel carrier. Or,
I mean,
Yes.
it becomes
A
an arms
battering ram.
race. I mean, when you
but it does it though.
have the
because-
hype of people that do buy assault rifles, and I'm saying there is a hype. I'm not saying it's not out there.
But even that, like the best, the like, I'm trying to think of like realistic scenarios because like essentially it's one of those like one of the things that the documentary argued is that it's if I buy here's a good one for you Max is I buy myself a nail gun. I'm gonna use that fucking nail gun. I might not need to. I might not have a project that necessitates it. I probably bought it for a project at the time, but I'm gonna finish that project. But I'm gonna walk by my shop and I'm gonna see my nail gun and be like, I need to use my nail gun. I haven't
Yes.
used that nail gun in a while. I want to use it. You know, I've got this thing. I want to use it. I mean, hell, I mean, in fairness for me, it's like I've got a rifle and a pistol upstairs, and it's like God, I need to find some time to go shoot. I want to shoot it because I have it, and I don't think a police department's any different in that sense. Easy back there, Jim.
Now, but like in that case, use it and train with it and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, but I'm not buying an armored personnel carrier because
right.
I can't afford
So
it.
one of the things that was interesting, probably the most interesting, and I think the most important aspect of this documentary that I was reading is like one of the consultants that some police department had hired to help train these SWAT forces or whatever. He's talking about it. He's like, he was an Army or a Marine or something like that, and he was a tactical guy, and he was like, when you go in a room, when you're in a war zone, when you go in a room and you're trying to clear a room, if you see people, all you're looking at are hands. And if they have anything in their hands, you shoot them twice and move on. That's how you clear a room. If they have something in their hands that you think is a weapon, you shoot them twice and you move on. And that is how we train SWAT. So if you're in bed,
I'll find out about that.
okay.
I have a
What,
buddy
SWAT?
that was actually on SWAT.
So when you're
SWAT stands for Special Weapons Asshole Team.
asshole team.
Yeah.
assault
Okay.
team.
So, but the point is that when you're in a military situation and you're going door to door, clearing a neighborhood or whatever for some sort of military situation, when you're clearing rooms, when you come across people, you're not looking at faces, you're not looking at where they're looking, you're looking at their hands. And if they have a weapon in their hand, you put them down. That's how you clear a room. That was his point.
Yeah.
And so, if it's and there was a story about this not too long ago. I don't remember the whole details of it, but essentially it was a no-knock warrant. It was this guy had a warrant for whatever reason. The SWAT was going in to get him, and he was in his bed with his pregnant girlfriend, and SWAT comes in the house. He hears people in his house. He's had issues with something. He knows he's kind of being looked at or whatever, whether it's by the police or by whatever. I can't remember what the backstory is of why he would logically be paranoid, but he had a logical paranoia. So he hears people in his house, and he gets his gun. They kick the door of the bedroom in, shoot him twice, and then go grab his girlfriend and finish clearing the house. And it's like, take whatever situation you want. Max, if you were in bed tonight and you hear some shit in your house that doesn't sound right, what's the first thing you do?
Grab my gun.
Exactly.
I did it last night. I mean, I did it. Yeah, last night. We were sitting downstairs watching TV, and maybe it was the wind, and our back door down here in the basement wasn't closed, and maybe the wind blew it shut. But it sounded like someone slammed the back door. First thing I did is fucking grab the gun and head outside.
Right.
Now, if that was SWAT coming to investigate me because my neighbor called me because of whatever red flag laws or whatever,
No,
I would have probably got killed.
Right. You're dead. And because they're the that's part of the issue too that they were talking about in this documentary is there's no level of reasonable warning for you not to do that, because even if they come in the house screaming police, we have a warrant for your arrest. Well, I'll tell you what, if I was going to go abduct you and the protocol was I yell that and you put your gun away, then I'm going to yell that to abduct you, whether I'm a cop or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a hard. It's not something that you have to be next level smart as a criminal to figure out. If people put their gun down because you tell them you're a cop without any real identification, then you scream cop and people put their gun away.
So if someone comes in my house and starts screaming police, the logical thing to do is to scream back, I'm the police. Put your gun down.
That's what I'm saying. That's my point. Is that any reasonable person who has some level of fear is not the right word, but some level of want to be capable of defending themselves, who has a weapon in their house for the intent to defend themselves, shouldn't logically say, "Oh, okay, you said you're the cops. I'm going to give it up." And so, like, it's to go back to the core of this. It's like Sam keeps calling it an arms race, and it's like, well, you know, how often has there been one where the arms there was a real arms race? The one real one that I can think of that was a major news story was another LA story, and it was a bank robbery, and it was straight up heat. It was those guys that went full body armor.
Oh, full body
full
armor. I remember
automatics, that
watching.
whole fucking thing.
I was
Right.
in California at the time.
That shit was crazy.
That shit live.
That
Yeah.
makes sense. And how many times has that happened? Once.
And those guys they didn't have an armored tank. They just had like full body armor, helmets, and
Or there was
all sorts of shit on.
the bulldozer guy too. That was another one, also California.
That guy, they forced him into that.
And
he went crazy.
Right.
But
you pushed him far enough, and that was the only he knew he was dead, so he might as well go out swinging.
Well, there was one in California.
Sam's giving
where
the
guy
puzzle
drove.
book.
He doesn't know about that.
Do you know the bulldozer story?
I don't know if I remember the
I don't know the
bulldozer.
entirety of it.
When was this?
Basically,
what was the time frame? Do you remember?
I don't know, but your listeners can comment on how screwed up I get this story. But basically, the situation was he owned a business. I can't remember if it was
It was a machine or a mechanic or something like that.
Mechanic shop or something like that. And the city started building something next door. Somebody that was tied to the city or county or whatever started building something next door, and they started doing construction, and they blocked off access to his property. So the customers could not get to his property anymore. And he went and talked to them that, hey, even though you guys are doing this construction, I should have easement into my property, blah, blah, blah. And it went on, and they weren't doing anything. And so he took his giant-ass bulldozer and started wrecking their construction site, like running through their buildings, tumbling stuff. Police came out. They couldn't
All right,
stop
so
the guy, whatever.
I'm going to interrupt a little bit because it was a little longer than that, because there was more like back and forth as far as, hey, I need access, and you're doing all this stuff. And so it wasn't just a bulldozer. In his downtime, because he couldn't work, he had like steel plated over the cab, so he was fully protected. And he drove it through the construction site and then drove it through town, and he was wrecking shit. He was pissed. Maybe it was overkill, but at what point does he have a right to be like, look, you guys are straight fucking me right now, and you're giving me zero options. What else am I supposed to do? I don't know if it's the right thing to do. I'm not going to say it was, but again, even a SWAT team wasn't stopping that one. But
or the guy in California, in San Diego, that stole the tank from the National Guard Armory or whatever. Do you remember that one?
I
He was
don't.
running through the streets, running over cars.
Oh yeah,
running
I
over,
remember seeing some video of that. Yeah.
Down the interstate, he tried to take out like one of the bridges, try to run the tank into the bridge, didn't do anything. Yeah, he was a nut, and they ended up.
Wasn't he an army guy or
shooting
something like that?
Yeah, well, yeah. I want to say he had some kind of, because obviously he knew how to
operate a tank.
So
Hey, I watched Indiana Jones. I know how to operate a tank. It's just two levers.
I mean, I haven't heard anything more about the guy. It was 2 or 3 weeks ago when those 2 Navy hospitals, the one that went to San Diego, there was a train engineer that literally derailed a train in the attempt to make the train, I guess, run into the ship somehow.
I have not heard an ounce of that story.
This was like 2 or 3 weeks ago when it wasn't too long after
it was
the naval hospital ship.
It was between COVID-19 and the UFO release, so how would we possibly caught that story?
well, the UFO thing is funny.
So wait, okay, hold on. Before we go to UFOs, I want to hear more about this. So the train operator,
He was actually like train engineer.
like on the train, like the denim hat and overalls.
Yeah, pretty sure he actually like worked for whatever rail company
Right.
is in that area.
had his bum whip.
But so he was derailing the train to try to.
He tried to make the train run into it, and essentially it derailed off the tracks, and I think just kind of like crashed into a parking lot.
He tried to run into what?
I think his intent was to try to make it run into the naval ship. I want to say his thought was the Army or Navy or government or whatever was trying to bring COVID to California.
Okay.
So he was basically trying to sabotage the naval hospital ship that had been brought there.
Right.
I'm not an expert on trains, but they
They
go over. Yeah, exactly. They go over bridges and stuff that is near water. But I'm like, I'm not thinking of how am I going to get a train to run into a boat.
You get into GTA 5, you can do it. That is pretty. That's fucking nuts. I can't believe I hadn't heard that. I mean, all the random news tidbits I try to keep up with. But yeah, so on that, there was the deemed video that is impossible to watch the whole thing because every time you try to watch it, it gets cut off. We should say that for AC though. AC needs to be a part of that conversation because he knows more than I.
We can, so I got in a conversation with my brother last night. We were talking about a lot of, stuff like that and global warming and all that kind of stuff. And not saying that he's an expert.
I mean, he's a hippie, so he's more expert than most.
Well, I mean, he teaches science. That's his job is, geology, physics, chemistry.
No, his credit is that he's a hippie. It's not that he's actually intelligent.
But what I'm saying is he's got a lot of very, very smart points, even though I disagree with him on some of the shit. And we had a long argument the other night, not argument, discussion about stuff. But because he teaches this stuff on a regular basis, he has, he does science experiments and stuff like that. So, I mean, we should maybe have him as a guest appearance one night or something. While we're on the subject.
He's got to send us a camera so he can put it on his vlog.
Yeah, exactly.
That was weird at your bachelor party, dude. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, he tapes everything.
Yeah, he's practicing stuff. Did he do the wedding too? Does he have footage of me?
I don't know if he did the wedding. But I don't know. Somebody's got to have footage of you laying in your underoos.
Yeah.
On the floor.
It's a
I
rarity.
can't believe no one took a picture of that.
It's a rarity. It happens. You're welcome. Jim, you're welcome too. Your husband appreciates it.
So apparently the guy with the train made it within 250 yards of the ship.
I mean, that's honestly with the train, that's not nothing. Because I mean, you get a train with some weight behind it, 250 yards, it'll keep going on its roof.
I mean, obviously you've got train tracks near a port, but apparently I guess he put it at high speed.
Well, the question is 250 yards in the direction the train was going, or 250 yards to.
I'm assuming as a crow flies.
Right, but if
it finally stopped.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if it's in the direction of the boat or in the direction next to the boat, because I mean, I could derail a train within 250 yards of anything. If it's within 250 yards of tracks, it doesn't matter which direction I'm going.
Like what you're trying to say was the train headed in the direction of the
Right.
boat and made it 250 yards
Exactly.
after it derailed?
Right.
Or was
If
it
it had
derailed
continued,
and it happened to be?
right. If it had continued on the path it was going, is that 250 yards in front of it, or is it to the side?
It crashed through barriers, plowed under a highway overpass, and skidded to a stop more than 250 yards from the Mercy. But apparently, he said that. Let's see, the ship.
He survived that?
Huh?
He survived it?
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, they arrested him. He said the ship is not what it's here for, is what he believed. And you only get this chance once. The whole world is watching. I had to. People don't know what's going on here. Now they will.
Obviously not, because I had not heard about it until now. I mean,
It counts. Apparently, there's a federal charge for train wrecking. Carries a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison.
Less than murder.
But that is one of the charges. I'm sure there's a mountain of charges that they.
April
What was it?
2nd or April 1st it happened.
You get destruction of property on top of. You get all sorts of stuff. He's doing time. But
I mean, it could be considered an act of terrorism.
I'm sure. I mean, hell, it's tyranny at some level. You're attacking.
Essentially, it's an attack on a military ship.
Yeah.
If that was his
Send
admitted attempt.
Send him to Gitmo.
He'll never get out.
Well, that's probably part of why we haven't heard much more about it. They're probably just going to put him in a hole somewhere, and we'll never hear from him again. I don't know. I mean, I have questions. So, like,
He just fell victim to the news cycle.
so again, one of the things that AC mentioned that he does want to talk about was the Elon Musk quote that I sent.
That's what he did today about wanting to leave California. That's what I was going to ask you about.
No, the quote was basically, there's some bad incentives in place. Basically, okay, so to give the conversation a little bit of context, he was on Rogan. They're talking about all sorts of different stuff, and they got on the COVID topic because that's all that anybody talks about anymore. And he was basically like, Rogan flat asked him, he's like, so if you had a magic wand, what would you do to fix this? Because, I mean, he's a pretty smart dude, and he has a very outside the box perspective on a lot of things that he goes after. And so he was like, better data. And so Rogan presses, he's like, what do you mean better data? And he's like, well, the hospitals are incentivized right now to count things as COVID deaths that may not really be COVID deaths. Because part of what he was saying was what we've been talking about on and off on a couple different episodes about, okay, I go do like a roadside, one of these drive-through testing sites. I don't feel bad. I'm one of those asymptomatic people, but the test site says I'm positive, and then on my way leaving the drive-through testing site, I get hit by a train. Is that counted as a COVID death or not? And so, according to Musk in the statement, is that yes, it is, but it's an incentive for the hospital. So let me clarify my scenario: is I get hit by the train, I don't die immediately. Lifestar or an ambulance comes out, picks me up, takes me to the hospital, and then I die in the hospital. Musk takes it a step further, and he's talking about how they're counting COVID deaths that aren't even tested if people are symptomatic. And it's like, well, if you're having a heart attack, you have shortness of breath, which is one of the symptoms that's listed. One of the official symptoms listed is like shortness of breath, chest pain, stuff like that. So basically, what he was saying is that there is inside the CARES Act, there is an incentive for hospitals to mark them COVID deaths whether they are or not. And
see, what you said was a lot more than what I heard.
Did on the Musk quote or on the video?
Well, on the video, the doctors were saying it was like 1,200 if they have a patient that if they put on their medical chart that they had COVID-19, and then they get another 2,800 if they have to intubate that person.
Right. And then some,
But
whatever it is, it doesn't matter.
Your price was a little bit different. I mean, I didn't know if Elon Musk said a different price. I don't know what that may be different.
Right, and I might have misquoted on the specifics of it too, because I really don't.
See, I've heard a little bit of defense of that kind of argument. That I don't know exactly how they're counting it, but I think one thing I saw that was more equating it to reasonable assumption, where you have someone that does have like COPD that has been living for years, and then all of a sudden,
right,
shit hits the fan, and they go to the hospital. They're not actually getting tested for COVID. and they die at the hospital, they didn't test positive, but it's reasonable for that doctor to assume that, hey, this person's been living with COPD for
Right.
10 years, and then all of a sudden
But
he dies with, very extreme symptoms.
right. I get that. It's just it feels like, I guess the point that I took from Musk in that is that this incentive's in place, which, some of it, he's like, I don't blame the hospitals. They're closing down all these other operations and they're losing money. They're having to furlough doctors.
The government says they're getting 20% on top of
right,
whatever.
and they get a little bump to keep the lights on, for lack of a better word. Why wouldn't they take it? But what is that skews the data, and skewing the data means it's harder for the policymakers to do the job correctly. And
that's under the general
forward.
assumption that hospitals and I don't know who exactly signs death certificates.
Right, and well, that was what AOC said, was that you should take their license away from them if they're assigning a cause of death that is inaccurate.
Exactly.
And I agree with that, but
There's a
it's
lot of fucking corrupt people.
but it's not even a lot of corrupt people. It's not inaccurate. It's not inaccurate if the protocol that's put in place by the hospital says if you actually have a test, mark it. If they are showing signs of it and it's reasonable to guess it, mark it.
So punish the masses for the faults of a few.
I'm not saying the point I'm getting at has nothing to do with a punishment system. We are producing bad data and we're trying to act on said bad data. It's like it's
Our main issue right now is lack of data. Period.
Right,
we
but
don't have the capacity to test.
True, but if we don't have the data, let's figure out how to get the data. Let's not just guess at the data and make up data for whatever reason. I mean, that's the point. That's the problem. Is that if we want to get like tinfoil on it and get crazy, and it's like, well, why are we incentivizing this? Well, make it look worse than it actually is. We can shut down the economy longer, and I mean, the argument can be made that especially the progressive side of the aisle is trying to use this. What's the phrase? Never let a what is it? Never let a catastrophe go to waste, or never let a crisis go to waste. It's an old phrase. Some politician used it forever ago. Anyway, so never let it go to waste, and let's use this opportunity to make some of the big structural changes of the government that we've been trying to do. And so if we can make this pandemic last longer, more people are able to pay their bills and all this stuff, so we can force this, that, and the other. And that's the tinfoil hat version. And I said that part in the get-go. But I guess the point is, regardless of the tinfoil hat side of it, what good is bad data? What good is incentivizing bad data? And maybe I guess best case scenario, it wasn't intended to produce bad data. It was intended to try to give these hospitals some help. Because when they were writing the CARES Act, they knew that this was going to affect the hospitals and blah, 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 blah. And I was trying to get them help. But the result of it is giving bad data in return. And now we're trying to operate, what do we do from here with bad data? And so that's the problem. And whether it's, dirty hospitals scamming the system to make more money because they're trying to do whatever they're doing, or is it, is there some evil back intent by somebody who was writing the act in place or not? I don't know. But, bad data in is bad data out. So what do we do to, again, Musk's point is like, we need better data. We just need better data, because then we can make things move from there. And, and so, I mean, for all intents and purposes, as the whole conversation went through, Elon's like, this is not that big a deal. So yeah, be careful, social distance, wear a mask, do whatever. But at the end of the day, at the end of the day, he's talking about how he's got like some 7,000 employees in China for Tesla. And he's like, I'm still signing all their checks. They're still working. China's back open. And maybe they're covering it up. Maybe they're shoving them all in the corner and letting them die without saying anything about it. But China's back open. And if China's back open, then either they figured out something we haven't, or it's more manageable than we're managing it. And either one is a big deal. You know, I mean, his data source is a little rough on that one because it's only 7,000 employees that are probably in one location, far away from the Wuhan specifically. But
Hmm.
I know like the that's what I've thought about. I know like Japan's numbers have gone up, and they've said Hong Kong numbers have been down, but those are also generally societies that you see in America. Shows video of it. That whenever the flu season comes around, you see a lot more people going around with masks.
right.
And I wonder if that contributed at all.
Well, I mean, one of the things to be that I'm curious about as far as like the social distancing goes is like we're hitting these numbers. I mean, Biden said it in a very terrible way or whatever. It's like blaming Trump for it or whatever, but it's like we're essentially getting to the point where we have a 9/11 every day. You know, we're getting to those kind of numbers where every day a 9/11's worth of people are dying from it. Oh, that brings in all sorts of weird stuff like we were just talking about. How many are legitimate? You know, another fun quote that I heard was the average age of death of COVID-19 is higher than the average age of death in America, period.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
I don't know if that is fully accurate, but you know, essentially it's basically the only people that are really dying from this are the people that should have died a couple years ago anyway.
I wish I could
On
quote it more
average.
accurately, but I want to say there was a certain state that I want to say like a third of their cases, or maybe been talking about a city, were
New York City, that's all.
let me finish, were in nursing homes.
Yeah.
So,
It was New York. Is it in New York or New Jersey?
because I thought I read that a lot of the New York, or at least New York City, were Rikers Island inmates that had been testing positive. I
That was
heard
a lot-
about
that
a
was a
state
big one, too.
prison outside of Columbus, Ohio,
Yeah.
that a lot of their city numbers were people in that prison.
Right. Which that brings up a whole question of what do we do with them after this, but that's
It's
not
been a lot of question of prisoners' rights. It's like, are we putting them at more risk by having them in? I mean, well, that brings up the issue of overcrowding prisons, but that's a separate issue.
Yeah, we already went into the
You know,
private
they're-
prison argument
if
last
they're,
week.
they're quote unquote, serving their time for society, doing their time. Does that mean they're any less of a person that we should just let them be
let them get
susceptible?
sick and whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, my argument early, and it was not a real argument, but it was like, well, let's instead of like releasing guys and getting them out of there, let's leave them in there and let's see what happens. I mean, it's data. I
It's gotta
mean,
be a petri dish.
I mean, sure, but it's a good data point. You have a very controlled population. You can see how quickly it spreads through the population, and then you can see what the results are on the other side. Because again, I don't know what the average age of an inmate is, but I'm assuming that it's probably in the lower spectrum of. It's below this. I'm assuming it's below the threshold of what COVID does its most damage to. I would assume the average age in prison is less than 60.
It probably depends if you're looking at prison versus jail.
I mean, I would think prison, like long term, whatever. Because I mean, I would assume that most people don't live a full, long life, even though they're capable of it, just because of sadness and boredom or whatever kills you when you're in prison for that long, if not your neighbor. But
Silly.
yeah, but I don't know. I think it's. But I mean, again, one of the other things too that I find super interesting about this is that I sent the stats out because I was thinking about it. I sent them out in the text message. It was like 25%, if I remember correctly, of all known cases are in the state of New York, and the state of New York has like 9% of the total population of the United States. And I tried to ask this of AC the other day, and I'd like to ask him again next time we get him on the show. It's like, what is so special about New York? I will wholly get on board with the population density issue.
Yeah, population density, and I think there's also, you've got two, if not more, major airports in that area. International airports. Because I think three.
We got
'Cause I think I'd sent you one
JFK,
thing
Newark,
where,
and
where I don't know if it was New York Times or someone had done an actual breakdown of the epidemiology of different areas in the virus. Most of the West Coast, most of those had come from strains that would come from Asia, but New York,
it's all Europe.
most of theirs had come from Europe. They still had some that came from China.
Well, I mean, Atlanta's a huge international airport, and I don't see Georgia having huge issues. Or Atlanta, or Atlanta as a whole, because I mean, Atlanta as a whole it's not as big as New York, but Atlanta as a whole has a mass transit system that is well used. It's more spread out physically, but I mean,
I think Hartsfield Airport is now the busiest airport in the world.
right. Chicago's another one.
Maybe
Chicago's
not right now, but
right, but Chicago's another one, and I mean, and Illinois is getting hit harder than most. Chicago probably being a big part of it, but as a percentage of the whole, I haven't pulled the math on it. But you don't hear about anybody talking about Chicago issues, other than the block party that got shut down by the cops.
I think with Atlanta, I don't think you've got as many international people straight up flying into Atlanta and dispersing from there. I think it's like a hub to where flights are coming in and out of there constantly. I don't think there's as many people getting off of an airplane in Atlanta and going to go check out Georgia.
Right.
I see what
Yeah,
you're
you
saying.
fly into
Because
it. You fly into Atlanta from
It's a major.
big
It's
international
Delta's hub.
right. You fly into Atlanta from Spain, and then you fly from Atlanta to Nashville.
I agree with that. I thought you were saying there's no. I was like, no, it's a big.
Yeah, more people are flying into New York. I mean,
but they're not
from New
staying
York,
local, right?
I mean, you can go to the major. I mean, you've got Philadelphia, Boston, Washington D.C., all within hour and a half drive, 2 hours.
yeah, you're not getting back on a plane for those,
Right.
or even
people
that.
flying into Georgia.
Yeah, that's fair. But again, that's my point. Is like I'm curious, what is it specifically about, New York that makes it that? And again, I will agree and I'll acknowledge that that's a part of it. I will acknowledge that the population density is a part of it. But we talk a lot about the government's reactions and involvements, and we like to blame Trump. AC does very specifically the Cheeto man or whatever he calls him all the time. Likes to blame Trump for all of it. It's like you have a Democratic mayor and a Democratic governor who have been pitching a fit about Trump the whole time, and at no point through all of this did Trump not get them what they asked for. At no point. They asked for more ventilators than they needed. Trump says, I don't think you need that much. And then got them more than they needed, brought the USS whatever ship in, and then Cuomo sent the ship out because they didn't need it. At no point has Trump not fulfilled what New York has needed. He's not fulfilled what they've asked for, but not what they needed. He's always hit that threshold of need for what New York is actually needed versus what they've asked for.
So you're actively giving Trump credit for that.
I'm not. I'm actively trying to figure out why Cuomo right now is the hottest, coolest politician on the planet, and Trump's an asshole. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Because Cuomo has been the one that has fought for Trump. Cuomo's the one that everybody's talking about. Well, hopefully Biden will die tomorrow, and Cuomo can be the one running for president because Biden's not going to do a good job. But somehow those two things, somehow it's all Trump's fault, and Cuomo doesn't get any of the blame for it. Cuomo was the one that made I think it was either de Blasio, it was one of the two. I think it was Cuomo that mandated nursing homes take back COVID patients. So like an old lady gets sick, goes to the hospital like they do all the time from a nursing home. They take her to the hospital, they test her, she has COVID-19. The hospital is trying to get her out of there because she's not dying, but they need the beds. And so Cuomo mandated, I think it was Cuomo, it might have been de Blasio, one of the two, mandated that the nursing home that they came from take them back. And then those nursing homes go get ravaged and they all fucking die.
I didn't hear anything about that.
Yeah.
Well, here's, talking about Trump, I really wanted to ask AC this question.
The nursing homes don't have the capacity to treat a COVID patient.
Right, and they can't functionally quarantine. They can't do anything like that without the staff interacting, and then the staff is going to pass it from old lady to the next old lady.
Right.
And so it was a weird move. But anyway, sorry, Max, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask AC because you know how the whole well, maybe we can use a disinfectant, and everyone jumped all over Trump and all that kind of stuff, which seemed kind of stupid. And I was talking to my mother today. We went over to her house for Mother's Day, and
Today,
yes, because I had the kids today. I won't have.
No, it's because
tomorrow.
just play the live. It's tomorrow for the people listening.
Oh yeah, for Mother's Day today. And when she was at the shop, and I was put that old sanitizer in those little bottles that we had in the back, the hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Well, what's in this?" And she was reading the thing, and in the thing it's called benzyl. Let's get that. benzalkonium chloride. Benzyl conium chloride.
Sure. Close enough.
And so
Sounds good.
she was like, when we were at the shop, she's like, that sounds so familiar. I don't know what that is, you know? And then she went home and she texted me back and she's like, oh yeah, she's like, this is like the best sanitizer you can use because it's got that benzium whatever in it. So I was talking to her today and we were just bullshitting about stuff, and she's like, you know, they gave Trump all that stuff about, you know, ingesting or could we use antiseptic to kill it and all that kind of stuff, or no, he didn't say antiseptic. What did he say? He said disinfectant to kill it. Well, she said when Sarah, as my sister has all sorts of medical problems for her whole entire life, when her appendix ruptured, she just thought she was sick and she didn't go to the hospital for 5 days. And so when she finally went to the hospital, she was septic when they took out her appendix, and there was polyps and stuff all over her ovaries and all over her organs and stuff. And the doctor's like, he told my mom, he's like, you know, this is really, really bad. I don't know if she's going to make it. He's like, I've got one thing to try, and I'm going to flush her system with benzium chloride. So they just flushed all her organs around that with this disinfectant, and it worked. It killed all that stuff. And she's like, they're already using it to clean organs and stuff like that. So she's like, I don't know, is that too much of a stretch for a guy that doesn't know about medical thing, that you can't like inject it in your veins and be the same? And I was like, that's a very good point. So I wanted to talk to AC about, do they use that for flushing wounds and stuff like that? I was interested for his approach for that, because that is a disinfectant for
Right. And I mean,
what we use it for.
I'd be curious to see how they're, I guess, flushing it through their system. I mean, if you
Like they had her
straight into the bloodstream, I mean, it'll go through your kidneys and your liver.
Exactly. No, but what I'm saying is they had her open on the table, and they just started flushing all of her organs with this stuff. Obviously, it's completely different than injecting it in somebody's bloodstream. I agree.
And you're not gonna, and we can't reasonably take every COVID patient, cut them open, spray them off, sew them back shut. But
yeah, but her point was that
it's not right. And for a non-medical person to go, hey, you know, I don't know what I'm talking about, but what if we did this?
That's exactly the point.
But I mean,
well, that's if he doesn't comment on stuff, we'll give him crap for commenting stuff. So like, yeah. But no, I was just that was something interesting that I didn't even know, that we use disinfectants to clean organs and wounds and stuff like that all the time.
right.
So it's not a big stretch to say, why cannot we use this more? I don't know. I still think it's a dumb statement. I don't disagree with that. Tell people that to shoot it up like heroin.
And I agree. I think one of the things I've come to is that I agree that it would be nice if we had a trusted figure that could speak to us as a populace and give us real good, solid information. And he fails miserably at that. But the problem is, at this point, with the way the world is, I don't know who could. It doesn't excuse Trump in it. It doesn't make it okay that he's terrible at it. But, you know, whether this Plandemic video thing is real or not, I don't necessarily know why I would trust Fauci. I don't know why I would trust Birx. I don't know why I would trust this guy from the CDC. You know, it's like with all the shit with all the history we have of the government specifically failing miserably at doing things in our best interest, who could they put on that podium that I'm going to go, oh, okay, this guy's legit. I'm going to listen to him and I'm going to do what he says. Or she. Don't mean to be sexist. I'm sorry, Sam. I cut Sam off. Hold on a sec. Sam, what were you going to say? I cut you off when I started on the little speech. All right, never mind. Lost it.
I don't remember.
Sorry, Max. Go ahead.
Well, you know, the head of the CDC or the National Health Organization or any of those, they should not have patents on drugs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I read a little story about that, and the money that that Fauci did get from any kind of patent that I think was brought up
Well, that's the same
was
thing.
he donated straight back. It wasn't anything, and he
Well,
even
and you-
admitted
Sure.
that it wasn't. It was
Sure.
kind of weird that
But
he was
Sam,
getting.
Sam, you'd brought up in a couple. You brought it up as a theory. You weren't sure about it, and then it came out to be sort of true with the hydroxychloroquine thing with Trump.
I don't know where you found that. I meant to try to look that up.
You kept saying Trump kept pushing it. You feel like he probably has some investment in it.
It made me question.
And you were right.
Why he was
Right. You were right that he did. Whether that's why he did or not is not the point. But you were right that he did. But it was such a minor amount, realistically, that it didn't make sense that any amount of him pushing that. Because that one specifically was the patent was passed, so anybody can make it at this point. The hydroxychloroquine one, but the what's Fauci's one?
Fauci has a bunch.
But the remdesivir or
I
something.
don't think it had to do with remdesivir or whatever.
I don't know, but like, I mean, it's a
But
weird.
that's what I'm saying is like if these people that are telling us what we should do have a vested interest in something else, it's like freaking Belichick giving coaching advice to the fucking Cowboys. Like, that'd be stupid, right? He's going to do what's best interest for him. But I don't think these people that
But again,
are
realistically,
in a position to talk about what is good for the world should have a vested interest financially in something that they are pushing.
I agree with that. But the problem is to get somebody in that seat.
There's no drug that Fauci is pushing. What has he been out there trying to say that he has a patent on? Oh, yet. Okay.
So they're trying.
He's had 2 months on the Corona Task Force. Well, I guess they haven't really been doing it lately, and they haven't brought him up in the past
Because
couple
they
weeks.
don't have enough people infected yet.
So he's
Too
waiting for
early.
more people to get infected before he wants
Absolutely.
to put his
I mean,
2 cents
absolutely.
in and say, "Hey, I got this drug. This will be great."
Well, I mean, if realistically, if he has one, if he has one that works, and he's trying to cash in hard on it, yeah, he needs to get the numbers to where it's. I mean,
I don't
You
disagree.
can't-
If he's
that's
doing this
true,
for
but-
financial gain, but I don't see him doing this as
The
a
problem-
financial gain.
but the real problem is,
Well, he
is-
did it. He did it in the past.
He
with
does not
AIDS.
have a bad track record. I mean, he has
Yeah, he
been
does.
in what?
with the AIDS treatment.
What AIDS treatment?
The AIDS treatment that came out in 1988, and
He
he
did.
held on to it till 1990. Go watch that video that I posted. Watch
I
it.
did.
It
I
talks
wanted.
about
I
that.
wanted to ask you about that and see if you still full-heartedly believed in that.
Well, yeah. I mean, did you? She talked about how she had the.
So you believe
trial.
her. So you believe her.
I mean, do you believe Fauci?
I would most certainly put my life on believing Fauci over her.
Why?
Over her.
What
Over her.
evidence do you have on that?
I mean, I said it. I mean, if you watch the video, I had to like go back a second and watch it. When she was talking about opening up the beaches, she said there are, I don't know what the fuck she's talking about. There's sequences in the sand and healing
Yes.
properties to salt water. What
Yeah,
the
I don't know
fuck
about
are you
that.
talking about?
I don't know about that, but what do they flush all wounds with? Saline solution, salt
Okay.
water.
I mean, there
I
are.
don't know. I've tried to look to see exactly what you're talking about because that whole thing about.
I mean, it was
properties
just
in
kind
the
of one
sand
thing
and the
after.
ocean.
I sincerely
found
tried to watch
anything.
it. Like I got through the first half of it with a pretty open mind, and then I kind of ran into that, and then the other doctors they put on at the end, and I've since done research on everything that she's put out. The one major paper she tries to hang her hat on, they actually retracted. The Journal of Science had originally put it out and did a partial retraction, then a fully retraction, because of all the tests they were not able to replicate their results and found contamination problems with the results that she came out with.
So the report that she put out that is saving all these AIDS patients is not true now. That's not what that's not the current treatment we're using.
Here's the real problem. I'm gonna interrupt this. The real problem is there is enough cases of things, not this one in particular, but things in general, where we can't help ourselves but give this lady a shot on being legit. And at the same time, some of us can't help ourselves but say, oh, this is just one trying to steal some limelight out of the situation. Is
No,
that
and
true or false? True or false doesn't matter. It's believable because there's a history of things like this happening.
Well, she brought up bullshit about Ebola. She tried to say that she had found the cure for it or whatever. She'd been working on it in the 80s when there was the first reported a case of Ebola in 1978.
No, she was talking about the Ebola being made. I don't think I watched it today again with my mom. I don't remember anything about her saying a cure for Ebola. She was talking about they created Ebola in the lab
In the 80s, when there were already cases of Ebola a decade prior.
So yeah. I don't know about that, but like I on the
I mean, all
saltwater
of it.
thing,
I'm sorry, all of it was bullshit. I mean, the two doctors at the very end, which I think they actually found these two guys, and they've had actual. It was like the head of like emergency medical technicians, and it was like two major medical organizations that came out and said these guys are total fucking bullshit. I mean, when they try to say when you put on a mask, actually no, she talked about that. When you put on a fucking mask, that you are reinfecting yourself, it's total hogwash. That's fucking bullshit. That is fucking asinine, stupid.
So
and then the two guys at the end are saying that, oh well, we're putting people on lockdown and having to stay at home, and then of course there's going to be a spike in illnesses when they come out because everyone's lost all their immunity. You do not lose your immunity in 2 months. It does not fucking work like that.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you on
that's
that.
what they tried to.
But you also have to agree that.
So you agree that there's a whole bunch of false shit. I'm sorry.
No, but well, yeah, but
Sam's getting mean.
You got to take everything. Obviously you can't believe 100% of what you hear, but you think the whole entire story, nothing in that story is true.
No,
it's compelling. It's compelling.
I
in the
found
sense...
there was a signed statement when she tried to say that, oh, I never took anything, and the books and information I had was all mine. I took that home or whatever. There was a signed statement. I mean, I guess you could throw in the argument in that he was coerced, but her actual research partner signed a statement with the district attorneys saying that he took those things to her on her behalf. When she tried to say, oh, I didn't have those things, but I know where they are. Or I know where they are.
Are you talking about the
She said it towards the beginning when they were saying they accused her of taking, I can't think of the word, because basically she was working for the non, whatever company for at the time. It was a university.
Can I shift this a little? Can I shift this a little bit, or you guys want to continue?
Shift.
What do you shifted it to?
Well, we're gonna. It's about it, but it's around it in the sense that YouTube continues to take it down because YouTube has announced that if anybody is producing and putting stuff on their platform that is against the WHO's acceptable guidelines kind of thing, that if it's against the acceptable guidelines of how to deal with this thing or whatever.
I think it was put out because it was false.
Either way,
yeah,
whatever reason, but I mean, YouTube has come out and said that they're taking things down. If people put up videos that are promoting what the WHO considers false narratives on what's going on, they're going to take them down. Does that pose a problem to anybody?
Well, if that's the case, half of YouTube needs to be taken down.
Well, but it's half of YouTube on this subject.
So just on that subject.
I mean, that's the current one. Is it in our best interest as the populace to be deprived of information, right or wrong?
I mean, it's an ever-growing problem of misinformation in general. I mean, Facebook, YouTube, I mean, any major outlet is struggling with it. I mean, especially YouTube. I mean, when you can post a video seconds and seconds and seconds,
right, and their ability to keep up with it and try to maintain it, even though it's a fucking Google product, so Google's pretty good at doing everything they want to do whenever they want to do it. But I guess my question is, like, it pains me, like it bothers me, the idea that it's getting taken down. And it's a weird issue because YouTube is a private company and they can do whatever the fuck they want. But at the same time, it's like, you know, I can go, on the bookshelf and find a book that is a really bad version of a story, whatever the history is. Somebody could write a bad history of whatever. So the concerning part to me is that bad information shouldn't be hidden. It should be beaten. It should be a bad argument should be argued better, not erased, because it lends credence. It gives her the ability to argue that she's right, because if she wasn't right, then they wouldn't take it down. If she was wrong, somebody would refute her argument instead of taking it away. And that's a bigger. I mean, again, outside, it's not particular to this one video in particular. It's just in general. That was Alex Jones's big thing, is that he ran his mouth and with some crazy conspiracy shit, but every once in a while he's right. And, he had the problem of discrediting himself because he was wrong so often. But, we go back to, this is an AC thing again. We're going to pick on him because he's not here. But an AC thing again is that it's if the onus is on you reading past the headline, the onus is on you to call bullshit when it's bullshit. It's on you to dig further. The problem, I guess, to me, is that YouTube has their algorithm and they pump more of the bullshit at you. If it's a subject that you're into, they say, "Oh, you're into this? Well, here's this video. Then here's this video." And then you're 6 hours later and you think the moon is flat. I went next level, not just the Earth. Moon.
The moon is flat.
I said it on purpose.
Go down the dark side. Just because we can't see.
But you get what I'm saying? Like that. Does that feel like an issue to anybody except for me? Like, does it feel weird that whether this lady's right or wrong?
Okay, Sam. I just Google searched.
I tried to move past it, but it's not happening.
Beaches and saltwater have healing properties, and there are tons and tons, and you can go look and see. Yeah, I mean, you can pick the site that
Get you some
want,
vitamin D.
and it talks about all. I mean, there's just sites and sites and sites that
we should
talk about.
We should
healing
start
properties.
prescribing people going to the beach.
I mean, there's been I've heard conversations of like prescribing vacation at least.
I'm not saying there's not anecdotal information to say that going to the beach.
I mean, it's good for your feet.
I mean, there's going out in nature. Yes,
a little
that's
sand
great.
on the feet to soften up your calluses.
I just don't see their. Her main point was just kind of hedging straight on that. It's like we should open up the beaches because.
Well, the reality part of
the
that
beaches are good for you.
Well, but one of the realities that makes her not fully wrong is that outdoor transmissions are rare, especially if you're keeping space. Trump making fun of getting sunshine in. The UV rays of the sun kills the virus.
But he was talking about introducing UV light.
I get it. I'm just
under the skin.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that
well,
there's not a real danger.
Sunlight
maybe
is good for you.
Maybe I don't know. I didn't get to watch the whole video. Every time I watched it, I either got distracted with something else, and when I came back to it, it got taken down or whatever. But
it's only like 25 minutes long.
I have a short attention span. I have 2 kids that like to go and they're hunting birds right now, all day today. They're running around the yards with sticks, trying to whack birds out of the sky. I got to kind of watch that. I've also been helping build the deck, but their transmission on a beach is very unlikely unless you walk up to somebody that has it that's sitting on their beach towel and sit on their lap.
I mean, you did or did not see video footage of beaches that had been reopened and the cluster of people that were on the beach. Those are not people socially distancing. I don't disagree that we should be able to go out and still be able to socially distance. But all the videos I saw, and maybe they were hyped up videos, were showing people not socially distancing whatsoever. And that was the biggest fear, is that everybody was just going to run out I wanted to do it too. Like the beautiful day, like hell yeah, I would want to go outside. And
Every
go to
time
the
I go to
beach.
the beach, I socially distance because I don't like people.
Well, yeah, I'm with that as well. What's a different thing? But I mean, there were people that were not doing that, which leads to the chance of you spreading more when you've got
Right. I mean, I'm
thousands of people.
right. I'm arguing as the one that didn't watch the video. I'm just saying, like,
But are those thousands of people just? I mean, the point is, if you
oh, wait, I got it.
do it.
I got it. I got the question.
What?
So all the spring breakers, right? Right when this thing all kicked off, it was spring break.
They caught COVID and went back to their colleges.
I'm
and,
talking
and
about
spread it. Yeah.
I haven't heard the story.
Oh, I have.
Oh, have you? All right. So
Yeah.
that was what the question I was going to ask. Is like, so did they all catch it? Now, okay. So maybe they did.
So is
Are they
there
dead?
A bunch of kids that are spring breaking that are all dead because they went to the beach?
They got the virus. At least is what the story is. But
yeah, there were
but
some
they're-
before,
but they're not dead.
because it was. I guess they did the shutdown like pre-shutdown, and there were multiple stories of
I
college
was at the
kids
beach.
going
I
down
was
to.
beach March. I didn't get COVID.
right. But no, the point being is if the story's correct, is that a bunch of spring breakers got it at the beach together because they were all fucking each other because that's what you do on spring break.
Well, I mean, they actually abided by it because I think at the time, because these people, the story I specifically remember, they actually went down to Mexico, and at the time,
Well, then you're
I think the state they flew from hadn't, prevented anybody from flying out and traveling, but they went down to Mexico, caught it there, and brought it back to, I want to say it was some kind of university in like New Mexico or Nevada.
okay. So the real so question one
So
is
okay.
how many died of the kids that picked it up. So the real question two.
We're
I
not
don't
doing
even care about
contact.
how many
We're
people
not doing
died.
contact
I
tracing.
Question-
want to know how many people got it. How many people are they saying that? And who is this who's saying this?
I don't know if they did contact tracing. I want to
So
say it was like every single person that came back, but then I don't know if they, did more research into tying back to tracking down the actual, airplane that they took from Mexico back to wherever they were flying back to. That's that possible transmission. I mean, we have
but the
two
video I
people
watched
close
was
to
bullshit.
our number one and number two people in the White House right now that are positive.
I heard about that.
I mean,
yeah.
that is how susceptible this is. We have people that close that were getting tested weekly that are now catching it.
Okay, but to continue the kind of beach conversation that we don't have the tracing to track it. We don't. I don't know. Again, this
I'm
is where
calling bullshit on that. That's somebody saying that's somebody that said, "Oh, that's why we had to close down beaches because there were spring breakers in Mexico that came back somewhere,
Well,
someplace."
that's not why they were closing down the beaches. They closed down the beaches because it is a hot spot for people to be within like 4 feet of one another.
When I'm at the beach with my family, I'm not within 10 feet of somebody.
I agree.
I don't know
There
what
are-
what you do when you go to the beach.
you go down to Rio. I mean, you go down to Rio and you're packed in there. There's
are
certain
nice,
beaches.
Yeah, I mean, there's nice beaches all around the U.S. I mean, I've been down to Clearwater beaches. It's rated like one of the top 5 beaches in the U.S. All the
Well,
times I've been there,
just-
it is fucking crowded. And it's a pain in the ass to go there, but
I just want to know. I want to hear the study that you're quoting. Where's that coming from? Is that who's saying that all these?
Right, because I mean, essentially, what regardless is it says that
I'm giving one specific case.
right, but even with the one specific case, it's.
But you're not giving a specific case.
But it's not, and it's not even trackable. It's not even trackable in the sense that did Jimmy go down to fucking I don't know, Destin? That's an AC one, but go down to Destin and partied up on the beach for spring break, pick it up there, and then bring it back to Indiana, and then he was case 0 in his town in Indiana, and then spread it outside of that, or did he pick it up off his other neighbor down the street when he got back, and we don't know the difference. That's that's I guess the main question. Man, AC is gonna beat the shit out of us when he hears this. He won't listen to it. Never mind.
He won't listen to it. He'll say, what happened last week?
There we go. 28 college students who chartered a spring break plane to Mexico now have coronavirus.
Okay.
Was
Headlines don't get it.
April 1st.
Okay.
And who is that? What's the site?
It's an NPR story.
I've started listening to NPR as one of my podcasts to try to balance out my
They went to Cabo San Lucas.
Cabo.
So they did actually charter a private plane. So he's
Okay.
pretty well to do.
Yeah. So all
That ain't
20. So
fucking cheap.
so if one of them got it somewhere, again that actually makes it worse as far as the argument goes, because if one of them picked it up on the beach or at the bar or whatever and got back on the plane, all 25 of them picked it up from the plane. So that doesn't. I mean, that kind of doesn't change the whether the beach did it or not. You know what I'm saying? Like, he could have picked it up off of the hooker he found there and got on the plane and sneezed one time, and that passed it to, you know.
You just brought up Spring Breakers. I'm not saying they fucking caught it on the beach.
Okay, so what else we got? Let's move off of Corona. It's getting stale.
It's getting heavy.
What's that? I mean, it's just, I don't know.
I just think it's easy to say something's bullshit or you don't believe something without having. I can say everything's bullshit
Yeah,
without having any kind of backup on it.
But that goes the same with. I mean, that goes the same with that with our Plandemic lady too. Is that, you know, we can easily call bullshit, or we can easily jump behind it, and neither one is really. None of us are really capable of truly sussing out the facts of whether it is or isn't bullshit.
No, and I'm not saying that what she's saying is 100% true, but I'm not saying what she's saying is 100% false. That's my point.
Right. And again, my issue is more that if it.
You couldn't watch the video; they kept taking it down.
I know, but my issue with it more is that they kept taking it down. They kept taking it down because it does, regardless of whether she's right or wrong, it's not in line with the WHO's assessment of what's going on, and so we don't get to hear it.
I mean,
Okay, so let's take this. I mean, you own a shop that does. Can we say this? So if you had someone that came out that was just putting out viral videos saying that, well, I guess you've already got the CDC that's saying that's already bad for you and could lead health causes. It was putting out possibly fake, but possibly untrue or whatever.
And they do, and we see it.
Would you not be up in arms saying you cannot be saying that, or would you be like, oh, you have the right to say that? I don't care if you're.
I mean, you do have the right.
You're decimating anything.
Well, that's the problem. That's the problem I have with the CDC, the FDA, is because I see the bullshit they already say that I know for a fact is false, and so now then I hear another lady saying, "Oh, you can't believe these people. You know, they're fucking criminals or blah, blah, blah. They steal shit. They make shit up and all that kind of stuff." And it's very easy for me to say, no shit, because I see shit they already lie to us about.
Right.
So to tell me that you believe what Fauci, I screw up his name.
Fauci, yeah.
Waldo.
Waldo.
Is honest about everything he's saying. I find that fucking hard to believe.
Right.
So
right.
when I already have a disbelief in that person, and then somebody else has another separate thing, it's easy for me to go, yeah, I'm going to believe her over him because he's lied to me. She has not given me anything yet to lie about. I mean,
well, that's a little bit of, but I get what you're saying, but that's also a little bit of
What does he lie to you about?
It's an echo chamber issue too, though. Is that you have a base want to believe her because you don't believe the other, and so
exactly, yeah.
So lack of evidence to the contrary, you're giving her the benefit of the doubt because you have evidence to the contrary of the other, which I don't know if that's the healthiest way to go about it either. But it doesn't say. I agree with you in the sense that it says, okay,
the reason to be skeptical.
I'm gonna at least listen to it, and I'm gonna give. I don't know. I guess my point is that she hasn't had a chance to prove her wrong to you yet, because you only have one little snippet of where we have the history of, and especially in the sense of a governmental organization, is that we have a history of the governmental organizations doing the fucking bullshit, and maybe this one individual had nothing to do with the bullshit, but we have that history when we hear the head of whatever talk.
Have you?
We're tacking back all the old ones.
I mean, this is separate, but it's a good perspective on drug companies and all these people. There is a documentary on Elizabeth Holmes. Have you guys watched that?
No.
So it's on Netflix or one of those, and basically she makes fucking millions of dollars off of. She has this machine that can run all these blood tests.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, she doesn't anymore.
Like,
she got.
No, yeah, you watch the whole documentary and they get, but
Yeah.
like this machine that within minutes you take a finger prick and put it in this computer and it'll give you all your stats. You don't have to draw vials and vials of blood for all this stuff.
She scammed the fuck out of people.
She scammed, like, they were running all these tests the old way, saying that this new computer was doing this shit. Like, she was on fucking TED Talk. She was on all this fucking shit.
Good story.
And, like, just scammed the whole medical community for years on this shit that she could never get the computer working right. It would fuck up and shit like that, and then falsifying stuff. So you watch shit like that, and then you think about these drug companies and I don't know, man. It's hard for me to believe any government agency, whether it's fucking the FDA, the CDC, the fucking President Trump, any of those. I mean, I have a disbelief in everybody.
Because they suck at their jobs. And the reality is that, again, it goes back to what we were talking about last week, is that it's an incentives issue. Like, before you guys got on the pandemic thing, I was thinking, you were talking about the holds patents. Fauci holds patents to some things, and he's trying to wait for it or whatever. It's like, you're not going to get a person in the seat, quote unquote, whatever that seat of authority is, without having a history of it. You want them to have a background in it. You want them to have knowledge of whatever the subject is that they're supposed to be leading the governmental organization on. To get that background, to get that experience, to get that knowledge, they've been in whatever that is. So Fauci has been a researcher. I mean, that's...
And with most, like, scientific papers, I mean, when you look at the bottom of how many people are part of that paper, you probably got 10, 15 people.
Well, what I'm saying is
that sign their name
right.
on that paper.
But to be the head of the infectious disease research agency, or whatever the fucking title is that Fauci has, you've been a researcher for a long time.
National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases. I
Okay.
finally learned that, because I was like...
So, but
That's a hard one.
You've been in the game for a long time, and especially in that particular game, you're gonna be a researcher, and you're gonna be on projects, and you're gonna be doing those things. And part of being on projects and doing those things is you're gonna be one of the patent holders.
He's got patents for all sorts of shit that
right, and so
never made it to market.
That's the problem is that Max was saying earlier, is that you don't think you should have and I agree with it in concept, is that you shouldn't hold conflict of interest, in the sense that you hold patents for drugs and you're the guy out there telling people which drugs they should take. I agree with that, but the guy who has the knowledge and experience to be the guy that tells you which drugs you should take for a particular situation is going to be a guy that's been in the game for a long time. So he's going to hold patents on things. And it's hard to not...
Well, that's fine. You can hold that patent. But if you're going to be the one pushing that, if you say this is recommended, if you're giving your stamp of approval on that and you're in the position you are, you should not be able to profit from it.
I agree.
I can't think of one instance that he's come out and mentions a specific drug and tried to promote it.
Well, yeah. I can't think of one instance that I've heard his voice prior to the last 3 months.
Now, he's just waiting. He's just biding his time.
Maybe.
They've already taken him off the Corona Task Force.
They didn't take it off. They shut it down.
Yeah, it was like one day they were trying to shut it down. Then they came out the next day, and Trump said, no, we're not shutting it down.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I guess the part of the argument and the base argument would be is that what has it really done? Other than the Corona Task Force, what has it done?
No, that goes back to all the other government agencies that are not working.
And what, like, are they're if the task force is if their job was to disseminate information, they failed miserably. If the job was to help distribute resources, as far as I can tell, they did a good job of that. I haven't heard, other than lack of testing, but lack of testing period. We can't just, we can't fart tests out and have them all everywhere all the time. We can't, the federal government, just like us, can't just make things appear that don't exist. So other than lack of testing, what have they done as a failure in providing equipment to the scene, for lack of a better word? Because as far as I know, all the governors that have had requests have gotten their requests. Maybe not their full request, but at least gotten the requests that actually filled the need.
I honestly can't tell you what the Corona Task Force was supposed to do. Were they tasked in finding a cure? Were they tasked in stopping the epidemic from spreading? What was, you made the task force. What was that task force supposed to do?
Man, I think part of it was optics. I don't think it's wrong. I think it's a good thing to show the American government, like, hey, we got a group of people together. We've got this guy that's head of infectious diseases. This person, Deborah Birx, that was with eradicating AIDS. I can't remember what exactly, she was with. These are well qualified people.
They brought in with was that the infectious disease one?
Yeah, that was Fauci. She apparently had been working on like AIDS, the AIDS epidemic for years. Was kind of, I think, was what her main focus as far as infectious diseases or whatever.
That was her. Yeah, that was her.
They had the guy from the Navy that was kind of head of logistics of getting things around. So I don't think it's wrong to appoint focal people when these are certain issues. Like, hey, we need somebody to focus on getting supplies from one place to another. We need one person to focus on logistics.
Right. So, but
the question was, what were they? What was the idea behind? What was the task force supposed to do?
And it could have just been optics, and then there was function in it and whatever. But it's like
smoke and mirrors, make the American people
maybe.
feel better
But does it need to continue? What are we?
The main, I think, failure was that Trump was able to take a lot of the focus away from the information that was there during the meeting.
So Trump's non-believable statements on it versus other officials that, at least Max and I in general, don't have a history of not wanting to believe. Or in general, fuck Max and I, just the general populace has been lied to enough by their government, regardless of who the person lying to them is. They don't care. It was a Bill Murray quote. You lie to the government, you go to jail. The government lies to you. That's politics.
Yeah. Well, did you guys see The Simpsons?
Yeah, the bees thing. I read an article.
I was like, they are fucking. They have a time machine.
Matt Groening's from the future. There's a Simpsons episode where they had some sort of pandemic, and Dr. Hibbert or whatever.
They had one of Trump becoming president.
Yeah, they've had a bunch of them. It's fucking 20, crazy.
30, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
This one, with all the people were outside, they're like, "We want a cure. We want a cure. You need to give us the cure." And then they're like, "Maybe it's in that van," and they tip over the van, and the barrel falls out, and it says "Killer Bees." And I was like, "Oh, that's fucking hilarious."
I saw an article earlier today actually that the murder hornets thing was a headline dump. It wasn't like. There's some entomologist or whatever that's like, no, there's we found one nest like 3 years ago, and we eradicated it, and since then we found 2.
Yeah, sadly that's kind of the downfall of a lot of news. They pick up on sensationalism. One person picks it up, and then it just spreads like wildfire.
But how does the fucking train derailing guy not be? That is a sensational news story if I've ever heard one, and I hadn't heard it until tonight.
Well,
it's for like 2 or 3 days maybe, and then after that it was on to something else.
Well, it's like my whole conspiracy of the Harvard doctor, when like in March when all that shit was going on with Corona, and then I heard about the article about that. I was like, how is that news? Not news. How is people not talking more about this? And it was because, well, it's coronavirus. We've got our what we want to focus on.
There's a Harvard sorry, Sam doesn't follow. There's a Harvard doctor that was apparently
Harvard.
Yeah, he was
I'm
apparently
sorry. I thought he was in Harbor. I was like,
he had some
Harbor
No.
doctor.
Yeah, he had some sort of relationship with the Chinese government, and they were sending him students, and the students were going back, and there was discussion.
One of the students was worked for the Chinese government, but she said she was in the Chinese army, and they had her portrayed as a research scientist, and they were smuggling back biological
right.
vials to Wuhan, China, which was
Right, because
research facility in Wuhan, China. He set up and was getting paid by and working for Harvard.
Right.
So I was like, that whole conspiracy theory that said the coronavirus started in Harvard. But
And I'm down. I'm down with the theory that it was a lab leak, not an intentional go. As far as there was a bat that they were doing tests on that got out.
Our intelligence community has already debunked this. If you want to discredit them, okay.
I mean, why not? They fail at everything else. Why would I believe them on this one?
So who do you place trust in? If everyone is not to be trusted.
None of them. I don't know. That's what I guess that's the point. I mean, we're going to go into the Michael Flynn. I mean, we're already at 2 hours, but we can go into the Michael Flynn situation.
I don't know enough about that to try to.
I mean, the Michael Flynn situation is the FBI put him in a lie trap to try to turn him so that he would turn Trump on the whole fucking.
Have you seen First 48? That is how interrogations are done.
Okay, great. So our awesome government is going to take the first 48
rules. That's how you find
rules.
out. I mean, you allude. You don't say, "Hey, we have this information on you."
Okay, so
he pleaded guilty just for the hell of it.
So
he pleaded guilty just for the hell of it.
Yeah,
okay.
because when you're sitting in there, okay, so he is. Trump assigns him as his, what was it? I don't remember the job title. It was National Defense, something like that, right? So Trump gets elected. He's not in office yet officially. He's going out and he's assigning cabinets, right? He's assigning the cabinet. The FBI and the CIA don't like Trump. They've made it abundantly clear publicly, vocally prior to that. They don't like him going in there. They don't want him. They don't want Trump to be their president. And they go about their ways to try to figure out how to get rid of Trump. And so the National Defense Secretary, whatever the fucking job title is that Trump put him on, he speaks to a Russian agent of a similar status about what their stance is on a thing, and the FBI sits him down or CIA sits him down and says, "Did you talk to this guy?" He's like, "Yeah, I don't remember all the specifics or whatever."
FBI, not the CIA.
Okay, fine. FBI sits him down and says, "I don't remember all the specifics on this or whatever." But yeah, I talked to the guy. We talked about this, that, and the other, and they have the transcripts of the conversation. And so they're literally asking him questions about a conversation that they have the transcripts for, trying to catch him in said lie. And they've now dropped the charges. I don't know if you heard that part of it. Even though he already pled guilty to it. They dropped it, and he's not going to jail.
Yeah, prosecutors
right.
dropped it, yeah.
Right. Because it's not, we're past that. We're past trying to get this Russian Trump collusion thing out. We only had an impeachment and a secondary hearing prior to the impeachment, which goes to argue why the wall didn't get built for AC for the first 2 years, because Trump spent his first 2 years trying to fight off this Russian collusion thing.
He's brought it up recently. He's still got to go, and he's like, "We're back on work, building the wall.
We're back on."
I know they put more wall up since the coronavirus started, but point is,
kids out of the United States.
Point is, so Michael Flynn gets railroaded by the FBI because the FBI doesn't like Trump being the president, and we're supposed to be okay with that, and we're supposed to trust the FBI on other things when they talk about other things. We're supposed to trust the ATF because there's some guy that's got a $25 fine for not properly registering a weapon in Waco, Texas, and we're going to go burn his house down and kill 80 people in the process. We're supposed to trust them.
I hate
from
to pull
this
an
one
AC,
part.
but there's more to the story. There's more to it. It's more complicated.
The Flynn
than that.
story or the Waco story?
Both.
There's more to it than that. What we already talked about it. What more to the Waco story? Like, logically, give me.
I haven't seen the documentary.
Give me an explanation of why our government killed 80 American citizens, 20 plus of which were children, by the ATF, who has all alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, for a guy in Texas who had guns. I mean, there's a huge long history of this bullshit, like the CIA existing in general and all the bullshit that they've done. I mean, the fuck, god damn, the one that bothers me the most right now is we get these self quarantining data dumps that go into the news will run a story on. It's like, well, these states are doing the best at social distancing, and these states aren't. Cell phone data. And they're like, oh, we got this cell phone data from this company. I'm like, oh, that's cool. You got our cell phone data. You know where I am right now. And they just do that, and it's no big deal. It's cool. Whatever. You know, these government agencies get this.
Probably a lot of major apps that people have just clicked on that. I agree. Just
that's
so
fine.
I can have this app. Now you're saying it's fine.
That's fine that people
that have agreed
to it because you want to function and you want to play fucking Angry Birds or whatever.
I'm not saying it's right to fucking hide fine print. I mean, people joke about it all the time with the iTunes. I mean, just to get a fucking iTunes update, you've got to agree, or else you don't get the update.
Right.
I mean,
it doesn't function.
Who the fuck reads it?
Right.
Nobody.
But we're okay with
how much is in it? I don't disagree that there's a lot of fucking fine print and what they can
right, but
do
there's two sides to it. Fine.
Data.
I agree that Apple can.
But you should be more upset with, Kroger and everything. That's selling your buying habits. I mean, do you have an issue with that?
Okay, so you're right. So I'm mad at Kroger for it too. Fine. I'm mad at Kroger for it too. You're not wrong. But when Kroger's selling to the government, I'm mad at Kroger I'm mad at the government for buying it.
I'm gonna blow your mind. There's so much personal data out there that you don't even realize.
Oh no, I understand. There's a ton of personal data out there. My problem is
the black web.
The government.
I wonder that myself. Where's the dark web?
The government the government that you're asking me to trust right now. I don't give a shit. I do give a shit that Apple sells it. I do give a shit that Kroger sells it. That's not my point. But if Apple and Kroger sells it, and my government is a buyer, that's a problem. Apple selling it is an issue. But my government being the one to buy it is a problem. My government that I'm supposed to trust is the one buying data on me so that they can manipulate me in the way they want to.
This has been going on for decades.
Okay, great. It's going on for... I
think it's right.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm just...
Yeah, the fucking... every 100th priest in the world is fucking kids. Is that okay that it's been happening for that long? It's been happening for 1,000 years and the Vatican keeps covering it up. That's cool. It's happened long enough. We're going to keep it going. Why would I trust a government that is trying to spy on me?
I'm not giving justification for it. That's not what I'm saying whatsoever.
Well, then why are you telling me to stop being upset about it? Just because it's happened before?
No, I'm just saying this has been going on for years.
Okay, great. It was a problem years ago. It's a problem now. I don't like the fact that they're a buyer.
I don't like it either. I'm not trying. I'm on your side.
It drives me fucking crazy.
Are we not sure that Threads is the one selling all this information?
It bothers me in the sense that it sucks that the companies are selling it. That bothers me that the companies are selling it. But the fact that the government that I'm supposed to trust is a buyer and that they're then using that data for whatever means they're using it for, and I'm supposed to trust them too. I understand on the company standpoint, it's a money game.
Did you see any of the Snowden documentaries?
I've seen a couple of them. Him on fucking Rogan was crazy.
Yeah, I mean he goes into it. I mean that there's a lot of domestic spying that goes on.
Yeah, and it's fucking bullshit. And
it's more just metadata. I mean it's a little thing.
It's not metadata. It's all of it. And Snowden has said it a number of times. It's not metadata. It's not. Oh, we've got all this whatever if they want to, they can open your fucking email and read it. Now, do they do it all the time? No, but they keyword search that shit. If you put the phrase, "I want to kill," I'm not going to say that. I want to organize a coup. Maybe that. Yeah, I'll say that one.
I'm not. Max is not organizing a coup.
If I put an email to a couple people that I want to organize a coup against the American government, that's going to pop up and they'll pull it out. They will see that.
It does remind me of a funny story. I've got a book on the NSA on a guy he's written 2 or 3 books on the NSA, James Bamford. But he was talking about, I guess it was, within maybe 5-10 years after 9/11. But they had a satellite phone recordings of Osama bin Laden talking to his family members, and they were actually like playing it over the loudspeakers basically. And he thought, using satellite phone, it was a secure network or whatever. I just kind of thought it was interesting. They were listening to all these just family confirmations of him, calling his family members.
Yeah, I mean I don't know that scares it scares the shit out of me, honestly. That the amount of
everyone's always tried to say like, oh, we don't have the computer power to to monitor this stuff.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, let's pick a specific.
I think right now we've got the fastest computer in the world. 15 miles, 20 miles from where we're sitting.
Well, let's talk about Toyota trucks for the next 15 minutes, and see how many of us get a Toyota truck ad in our Facebook feed in the next hour. I mean, it fucking happens. It's real.
Well, I get like on my Facebook, I get a ton of tortoise ads and fishing ads.
I mean, I get what did I get the other day that was very topical? Oh, I was it was something. It was fencing. Like I got on not sword fighting fencing, like fencing, because I've been talking about putting a fence up.
I thought they had messed it up, and you'd been looking at actual fences, and
no,
here's some fencing.
I'm
a scabbard.
I needed to put a new fence up, and I was thinking about and talking to my neighbor and some different shit about putting a fence up, and I get in Facebook, and like every fifth post is, I mean, it's all post fence ad, post fence ad, post. Back when I was looking for a vehicle, it was post, car lot, and it's like
fucking scary.
Like, I mean, some of them, like, I get if it's like, I mean, I could get behind the idea if I'm actually searching it, like if I'm on Google and I'm searching for like, suppliers of fence parts or something like that, and then it pops up in an ad in my Gmail. Okay, I get that. But when it's literally just talking about it in a room with phones active, and it knows.
It was like when Sam was trying to buy that big black dildo. Remember that big black dildo Sam was trying to buy?
Yeah.
We'll see how many big black dildos
I found it on
we
special.
have in our.
Oh, actually, no, a better one.
In our news
I thought it on sale. I waited enough until I got a Groupon for it.
A better, more recent.
I was able to talk about it, and I finally got the right ad that had 50% off. That's a good thing about this.
A better, more recent one has been. We've been talking about land. We've been talking about getting land and some hunting grounds and stuff like that. I get Cabela ads all the fucking time. But like, like lots for sale, like realty companies that do acreage instead of just a lot, like I've been getting a ton of those. And so like, but that I get, I mean, it's creepy, but that I get because it's actually functional sometimes. I've used I've actually clicked on a couple ads and followed them through the process.
But in the grand scheme of it, it's those marketing companies that are trying to push businesses towards their possible
and that makes
clientele.
sense. And on the other side of it, when I've run Facebook ads, like we've run a few Facebook ads until they figure out that we're unadvertisable by law, it gives you a very you can target age and all sorts of cool stuff, and it's really nice. And that bothers me.
Double-edged sword.
That bothers me a little bit, but again, I'm going to go back to the people that I'm supposed to trust that are here that are supposed to be here and acting for me, are buyers of that to use for me, and I say that really hard in the for me as high as I can get that to make sure there's a big question mark on the end. I don't feel like they're doing it for me. There's no logical way they're doing that for me.
Disease control are doing what they do to protect themselves.
I mean, I don't know on this particular one, but sure. I mean, they are going out and they're finding out what the populace what the populace thought on it is, and they're trying to control the conversation. They're trying to control the discussion as far as what is and what isn't reality. They're trying to, I mean, fuck. I mean, the one that bothers me the most is I get the Boy Scouts lawsuit. So the Boy Scouts are getting sued.
Yeah.
I get that one all the time. If and
you
it's
like
like
a plaintiff. Like, have you been abused? Okay.
I thought it was because you're a pedophile. You were getting that.
Well, that's why I joined the Boy Scouts. But then my kids are there all the time, and that's fucking weird.
I'll molest a 9-year-old, but not my 9-year-old.
Exactly.
I finally got an excuse to be in there.
But it's like, I mean, It's just that's a really. I mean, that's a like I'm sitting there messing around on Facebook and like I've had to try to like I actually had to describe what sexual abuse is to Eli.
Hmm.
I mean, I didn't go into detail or whatever, but like
You
he
described. Hopefully, it wasn't like this is sexual abuse.
but I mean, Jesus Christ, But I mean, like I had to cross that bridge because of targeted advertising.
Yeah.
And that sucks. But that sucks in a different. I mean, that sucks in a different way than what I'm trying to argue about right now. Because that's not the
Well,
government telling me.
how did the kids like? My kids weren't in Boy Scouts long enough, and they never. I don't know if they had ever come where. Do they have conversations about that with kids in Boy Scouts or no?
I mean, there's a couple different program like there's a required program upon signing up, and then you have to do it every year, where it's like a safety thing that you're supposed to do with the parents,
For
like
the leaders, but I don't think there's anything.
But they
in
don't-
place
they
to
don't
actually
involve
talk
the
to the
kids
kids
in it.
about it.
the
Right.
parent
Okay, yeah.
no the parent and the kid. There's like a little pamphlet thing, and it's like a questionnaire kind of explanation thing. It's not real. I mean, it's very sensitive to the fact that you're supposed to do it with the kid, so it doesn't really talk about it specifically, but it talks about
I didn't have to
just
do that
some of
for,
the
like,
protocols.
Maybe 6 years ago.
It's I don't know
It was
when
just for me to be able to be a leader.
right. Leadership has a whole another set of stuff, but there's a yearly kind of like safety protocols kind of thing that they put out that you have to do every year. That each parent has to do with the scout every year, and then I have to update my leadership training
Profile.
thing every year. But the parents and every kid has to do it. You did it too, Max. At some point, you might not have really paid attention, but you had to do it to sign up.
Sign up. Oh, where do you mean to sign? Okay, yeah, I did
Yeah,
that.
and they get.
I mean, the only thing that we did is like went to the meeting. They're like, "Oh, who wants to sign your kids up from Boy Scouts or Cub Scouts?" And then they had like they went there, and then they were like, "We want all the parents to talk to the parents," and they talked about like kind of what they do and stuff going on and whatever. And then from then on, we dropped them off and picked them up.
Right.
Like,
But I mean, there's
don't
all sorts.
remember.
There's a bunch. I mean, if you want to get the specifics on it, there's a bunch of shit in place. But it's like, I mean, realistically, if I have, if two there's a two adult requirement, and assuming that one of them isn't a creep, you're good.
Uh-huh.
Because by rule, there's 0 one-on-one time between leader and kid.
Right.
Even their own kid, if it's inside scouts.
Yeah.
So, like, I can't pull one of mine out of a meeting to tell him to calm the fuck down because he's being an asshole
Without somebody else present.
without a second adult present. And that's their safety method. And so, as long as you don't have two adults that are both creeps, then you're good. That's the scouts' safety protocol per se.
As long as both guys aren't creepy.
Well, they're not colluding as creeps too. They're not both selfish creeps in that they don't want the other one to see that they're the creep too. But that's the scouts thing. But to get back on topic, at least I
I
hate.
don't even know how we got on this.
Well, we were talking about targeting advertising and stuff like that, and I just hate
Boy Scouts. Yeah.
targeting advertising. Is one thing, and it makes and there as a market guy, I'm gonna be okay with targeted advertising, but as a citizen of a free nation, I'm not gonna be okay with my government being a customer of that targeted advertising program.
I agree wholeheartedly.
It's not their fucking place to spy on me as a citizen.
It's fucking,
Regardless of what they're.
That's probably George Bush's fault when he had the what was that fucking
Patriot Act.
Patriot Act.
Right, and you want to talk about some fucking bullshit is you talk about Obama continued it, and in all the shit, you want to talk about my line in the sand for Trump and why I really, really want to hate on Trump is that he re-upped it twice.
That's fucking I mean, that is I don't like that shit at all.
Is there certain provisions of it? 'Cause I know there were some that had like what they call like No, it wasn't the sunshine laws. I think there were some that actually they let expire and they renewed some of them, or is it a
Yeah, it's
bulk
got a
across the
right.
line?
It has
You approve the whole thing,
right. They're all the original Patriot Act had a it had an expiration date. I don't know what the political
Right,
legal
are they
term
able to
is.
do it kind of like a bill and like
It,
earmark things on and take certain things off
I don't know the specifics, but I know that
reauthorization?
I know that every president, Bush put it in, and Obama continued it. Trump has continued it. Trump will continue it again if he gets the chance. I am looking forward to my free hunting pass because AC's buying because Trump's getting reelected.
I mean, I think it's a double-edged sword with the whole, I guess, reauthorization of it. I'm not a big fan of the Patriot Act. I don't like government surveillance. At the same time, some of that stuff is almost required to catch certain terrorists and bad people in the act. I mean,
No, well,
I don't really
I
want to
don't
justify it, but
see. I think the CIA, and they already do shit like that. You know what I mean? They're already doing stuff for foreign. I don't think that stopping the Patriot Act is going to stop that. But I
I mean, I
think
don't care about foreign
stopping
shit. I mean,
the Patriot Act is going to stop it on for Americans.
right. I don't.
And
I have no moral obligation to care if my government. I guess I kind of do, but
originally it was domestic surveillance could
Right.
only be listened to if you were talking to somebody outside of the country.
no, the Patriot Act doesn't give a shit.
No,
you
I
know,
think before that. Before that.
Right.
But the thing is, they're saying they're trying to use it, but like, oh, if there's a terrorist embedded in fucking whatever Texas, it gives them the opportunity to listen to this person they think is a terrorist.
So,
but
the reality again, the main reality again, and I guess this is probably my hill that I will die on is that we suffer as a society from an incentive problem. We do not incentivize anything that we do, governmentally at least. We do not incentivize things correctly. And so since we don't incentivize them correctly, we act in the ways we act as a government that is against the popular need. And if we were incentivized correctly, even in international issues, if we incentivize things correctly, how the fuck could you hate us enough to fucking kill us? Like, what is it? Like, honestly, like, God, we should stop right now and start a new episode. What is the point? Like, who on the fucking planet gives a shit enough to go fly planes into a building and they might, I mean, who cares enough? Who hates America enough to go fly a plane into a building?
Well, it just goes, back to my whole original thing. Fucking people that are on fucking welfare hate the people making money. The people in the foreign country that have a shitty fucking life hate the fucking people that are living in America.
I disagree. I get what you're saying, and I don't think it's. I don't think it's wholly false, but I don't think that's accurate either. I get what you're saying, and I don't think I think there are cases of that, but on the scale of what we're talking about, I don't think there's anybody on the planet that could really hold enough hate for a populace of people just because they are wealthier than they are. I think that hate, the Taliban hate, is stemmed off a lot more shit, and it's way more complicated. Thank you, AC. I hear you talking. It's way more complicated than that. But
fucking go to Dubai and then go to Baghdad.
All those complications are built into. Some of it is local to them, but most of it is our interactions with them.
Yeah, over history.
Right, our historical interactions with them.
No, go to Dubai and look at the buildings in Dubai and talk to the people in Dubai, and then go to fucking Iraq in Baghdad and go look at the buildings in Baghdad.
Right, and then go through the history.
It's different because fucking the people in Dubai have fucking money. They don't care about fucking blowing themselves up.
Go through the history.
Killing people.
Go through the history of the leadership that got Dubai to where they are versus the history of leadership that got Iraq to where they are, and their involvement with the West in general.
It's the same people. It's the same religion. It's the same. It's the same people.
Just because they're the same religion does not make them the same people.
And you're not.
No,
I follow.
I wasn't saying because of the same religion, they're the same people.
But no, I follow what you're saying. But
they're Arabs.
Even if they live in the same
Muslim.
area, does not make them the same people.
It's not even that. You're not wrong, but you're wrong at the same time in the sense that it's their interaction with the quote West as and their decisions through leadership and their social desires to do what they want to do, and the history of those two relationships.
I mean, we've had close ties to Qatar, UAE, and the Saudi Arabia for decades.
Yeah.
For
and
decades.
We've had close ties to
not so much with Iraq or Iran.
Right, and we've used those relationships to defend them against their neighbors for whatever reason they didn't like their neighbors and all that kind of bullshit. Whether it was communist issues with Russia or whether it was just straight up local.
I'm sure it was us putting our hands in their politics.
Right, that's my point. Is that all this shit, all the terrorism shit, is based on our government interaction with it's our foreign policy issues with them that got them to hate us enough to do the things. And so all these, like, again, going back to the original of this, all this, the Patriot Act, the internal spying, the government using our mass data that they're buying from our cell phone suppliers and all that shit. It's all based on them trying to hold on to the system that they have in place. And the only reason they have the consensus of the populace to let them dig into our personal lives and take all this information from us is because they have to defend us against this thing that they created. That's my point, is that there's no war is inevitable. Neighbors fighting over bullshit, resource fights are inevitable. That's where your money conversation is wholly accurate, Max.
It's always about money.
It is.
Always, okay, look, where's crime? Is it in the fucking Beverly Hills? No, it's in fucking Compton. Is it in fucking, it's all about money. It always comes about money.
You're right.
Crime fucking happens, and whether it's
unless you're talking about
robbing
white-collar
a liquor
crimes.
store.
Also,
nobody cares about white collar crimes. I'm not talking about. I mean, when it's robbing a liquor store versus fucking blowing themselves up in a fucking crowded intersection.
I'm just saying. I don't think but at least, but in the terrorism conversation, the only reason we are the target is because we involve themselves in their local dispute.
We are not just the target, though.
But
look at France.
We as the West,
London.
not we as America. We as the West.
Okay, we as the West.
We as the West are the bad guys because
we've touted ourselves as the greatest country in the world. I mean, we put a bullseye on ourselves.
Well, I'm just saying that there's other Westerner countries that have issues like
right.
us.
I'm just saying, I don't think. Okay, so again, going from where we started in the Patriot Act issues and why I loathe the idea of it, the justification for is to save us from the terrorists. But the only reason the terrorists exist is because we as Americans exist because of the empire. We fought the empire to get our freedom from the empire. And then somewhere along the lines, we became the empire. And now we are the people that we fought to be free from. And that is why we are a target. And that is why we are allowing these freedoms to be taken away from us. And that is why we just submit to the government's bullshit, because we have become what we fought to be not.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, you got to look at, for me, when we're talking Western, you got to talk, look at the United States, then look at Europe, because we're bigger than the size of all of Europe.
Right.
So when you say, well, United States has more terrorist attacks, we don't have more terrorist attacks than all of Europe. You know what I mean? So it gets hazy. I mean, we want to break it down by state is probably more accurate to Europe. You know what I mean?
No, I agree with you on that.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, but again, that the point of I mean, I guess this gets down to coronavirus shit too. The point of like we submit to this government. I am going to get on a list now. God, I hope. I mean, we submit to this government. It's a good thing we all use fake names.
Well, 3 of us use fake names.
I just use
Except
no
for
name.
Jim.
We don't ever. Yeah, 4 of us. Yeah.
I'm just saying
I don't ever know what to call you. I just say you.
we submit to this. We submit to this for our own safety, but we created the hazard that we're trying to be safe from. And I don't know. I mean, I guess the real conversation would be how do we fix it? Because we can't fix it. We can't walk away. That doesn't fix it. Because then we abandoned. And so I don't know. That's fuck. I don't know. Maybe that's a good place to shut it down. And we can start a new conversation about how do we.
Yeah, we'll start next week of term limits on all government jobs.
I am down with it, but if it's only total, I don't agree with by position. I think it's total. You get 20 years total. You can work in government for. What's the standard? I guess you start working at 18, retire at 65.
Mm-hmm.
So 47 years. I think you should.
No, you don't get 47 years.
I mean, that would be a normal person working life. I'm just saying. I think maybe, give you. I think 25 would be a reasonable starting point. So 25 to 65, subtract 10. So I'd say 30 years. 30 years of total government service.
So you're saying total. So if you work as a senator for 10 years, then you could be, a congressman. I mean, yeah, let's stop this. It's going to get too deep.
I'm just saying, yeah, if you're going to go there. But, all right, guys, this is episode, I think it's 9. I forgot.
9.
Episode 9 of Almost in Agreement. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. I'll be calling my mom as soon as this is over. Yeah, as soon as this is over, because it's, it'll be about 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon by the time this is over. I mean, this afternoon. What shit. All right, so this is Almost in Agreement, episode 9. Hit us up on Facebook. It's Almost in Agreement. And I don't know, give us something else to talk about because we're stupid. Anybody else want to say goodbye?
Bye.
Yeah.